Load and load.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the programme. Welcome to the home of common sense.
Yes, it's me again, your genial host, Kevin O'Sullivan.
Top of the morning to you. This is Talk Breakfast. I'm Mark Dolan.
Just some breaking news for you coming out of Liverpool Crown Court.
Loads to talk about, I promise you that. Loads and load and load.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the programme. Welcome to the home of common sense.
Yes, it's me again, your genial host, Kevin O'Sullivan.
Top of the morning to you. This is Talk Breakfast. I'm Mark Dolan.
Just some breaking news for you coming out of Liverpool Crown Court.
Loads to talk about, I promise you that. Loads and load and load.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the programme. Welcome to the home of common sense.
Yes, it's me again, your genial host, Kevin O'Sullivan.
Top of the morning to you. This is Talk Breakfast. I'm Mark Dolan.
Just some breaking news for you coming out of Liverpool Crown Court.
Loads to talk about, I promise you that. Loads and load and load.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the programme. Welcome to the home of common sense.
Yes, it's me again, your genial host, Kevin O'Sullivan.
Top of the morning to you. This is Talk Breakfast. I'm Mark Dolan.
Just some breaking news for you coming out of Liverpool Crown Court.
Loads to talk about, I promise you that. Loads and load and load.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the programme. Welcome to the home of common sense.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hey, very good morning to you. Just gone 6 o'clock. We're live across the UK. You found us with Talk. This is, of course, the home of common sense and the home of the alarm clock. Brit, where your views on the news of the day are what this show is all about. This is truth and honesty, nothing more. 0344 499 1000. That is the number you need. Tommy is back. Everything's back to normal. He's very organised. 0344 499 1000 is the telephone number. You can ring. You can leave a voice note message for our Christian, the world's greatest producer, is what he's written down here for me to say to you. 87222 on the text. Big Mark is pushing the buttons in his he's got a bit of hoodie thing going on today. I don't know what he's been out doing. Nahar is just a calm sea of brilliance in an ocean of madness. But anyway, welcome to Tuesday. Where were you yesterday? I mean, so many of you were off. We were at it, and we're at it again. I came in this morning and I thought to myself, I wonder if I can do a show that doesn't involve illegal migrants or Keir Starmer. Well, the simple answer on Tuesday the 5th of May is not. You'll have seen, perhaps, or heard already, front page of The Sun, summoning it up absolutely. Small boat migrants' arrivals are on course to hit 200,000. 200,000 illegal migrants have crossed in the last 8 years, 800 arriving this weekend. Official statistics show that by Sunday night, 100 shy of 200,000 across the channel in 8 years. Here's the thing for you, right? So it's equivalent to the population of York. My daughter's at York. I didn't know it was 200,000. But get this, you know the one in, one out? So 200,000 in, 7,612 illegal migrants have been deported. Opponents say Labour has no control of the borders. Let's be honest, nobody's had any control of the borders for the last 8 years. 200,000 illegal migrants in this country have arrived and only 7,000 have been deported. You have to ask yourself how we've got to this. We can sit and blame and talk about political will, but once your public services start to crumble and once, you know, stuff happens that people look at and go, this isn't right, whatever happens in the next couple of months and years, this is the biggest thing I think one of the biggest things, let's say, that needs sorting. It'll be interesting. What do you make of that? 200,000 illegal migrants in 8 years. 0344 499 1000. Text to 87222. So we've managed to talk about illegal migrants already. Keir Starmer. Brilliant. Right, so it's been reported today in several newspapers, this is shocking to me, that Starmer's been kept away from the local election campaign because he's toxic. Yeah, I get that. Labour is forecast. We're in, for people who listen regularly, when you're covering elections, we have to be straight down the line. These are on Thursday. People are saying in newspapers Labour could lose 2,000 seats. Reform and the Greens will make great gains. Apparently Labour MPs are already discussing plans to demand that he sets a date for his resignation in a letter on the back of what they know will be a complete nightmare. Lots of people apparently planning to vote tactically. There's the Muslim vote, there's the Green influence, there's it's all in, right? It's all in. Whatever happens, Keir Starmer, I don't know, you might not have been listening yesterday, but I had this strange moment at the weekend where I woke up and I thought, I really don't like Keir Starmer. I think he's probably potentially the worst Prime Minister we've ever had. But the alternative makes me shudderingly think, God, would we be better staying with him for 3 years? There's a thought. 0344 499 1000. Badenoch's out there doing a bit. Says Britain needs zero tolerance on crimes that make our lives a misery. Quite a fan of Kemi Badenoch to a degree, but that just is common sense, isn't it? Well, just get more police. It was your party that took all the police off the streets. There's a thought. 0344 499 1000. And breaking overnight, Donald Trump has threatened to blow Iran off the face of the earth after he sunk 7 Iranian boats in the Straits of Hormuz. Later on, we'll hear from Isabel Oakeshott. Apparently, missiles have already been launched again at the UAE, United Arab Emirates oil facility. The Middle East still a powder keg, and seemingly nobody seems to have an answer how to end it. And just to completely depress you on a Tuesday, not that you'll be able to, around 2 pubs are closing every day because of government policy. Everybody's skint, so you can't even have a drink. You're not allowed to go into the garden to have a smoke. Basically, at the end of the day, I paint a really happy picture on Tuesday the 5th of May. But the way to make you happier, my friends, is to welcome our paper reviewer. She's a legend in these parts. We say a very good morning to Samara Gill.
Oh, good morning. What an intro.
How are you?
I'm great. It's great to be here.
Well, you weren't here yesterday. Another part-timer on a bank holiday. What was going on?
I was here. I actually made a big investigation into this cult, this Islamic cult that was operating in Crewe. I'm not sure if you saw over the weekend, but 500 police officers stormed it, and there's been massive interest, hundreds of thousands looking at that video overnight. I didn't even realise people cared about this, but I think we'll learn more. There are a lot of Islamic sects operating in the country that we don't know much about, and Christian ones, and any level of extremism just really shouldn't go on.
Can I just say, we're not actually going to talk about that cult today, but we will be talking to Samara about that in the next couple of days. But I think anybody who goes to Crewe should be given a reward, because have you been to Crewe before?
I've been near it.
Extraordinarily. Yes. 0344 499 1000. Let's start with the papers. It is there. It's all over the sun, Samara. Yeah. Just one more small boat and arrivals hit 200,000 in 8 years since this crisis started. 200,000 people, which is the size of York, by the way, and only 7,612 deported. What's your take?
I mean, as Zia Yusuf always says, it's now more, it's 50,000 more than stormed the beaches on D-Day. Wow. And that is something absolutely cataclysmic for the nation. I think it's really interesting because it also, even in this article, they obviously refer to the Reform UK thing about purging detention centres in green voter wards. That's a very interesting idea that was received kind of crazily internationally.
You and I might have an argument.
Yeah, really?
Yes.
You don't agree?
The only issue that I have, and this was Zia was on the show yesterday talking about how, to remove the hundreds of thousands of people that need removing, and I accept that, there will have to be detention centres, right? So that people are not able, young men, to walk free and roam the streets. And in fact, that sends a message. So in my new balanced way, Zia comes on and he says, we're going to build them in green controlled areas or MPs. Yeah. As some sort of punishment, which is fine. So let me ask you this. What if you live in a green constituency or under a green council and you didn't vote for the Greens?
Which will be the case for a lot of people. Just look at Gorton and Denton and the split that it was between Reform and Greens.
So for me, we should as a nation be saying, like we do so often, we moan and we bitch about a situation. Think about house building. I think we should have more houses, but not in my bloody constituency or the end of my road, because that wouldn't look nice. Well, I think we all have to accept that if what happened in Epping isn't going to happen, if what's happening in those 3 hotels in Bournemouth isn't going to happen, we are all, whatever side of the political spectrum, if a government gets in that says they will detain and deport, we're going to have to build detention centres in all sorts of places that lots of people won't like and swallow it. That would be my only take on what he said yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, I can agree with elements of that. I think that Australia did very well offshore processing. They took a kind of disused island and did it there, and then it was kind of out of sight, out of mind, which was actually quite beneficial politically for the party in control, which was our Conservatives at the time. So, yeah, I agree with you, because it doesn't take into account the fact that there's this weird sort of carcass of Labour in the middle, with the Greens and Reform eating flesh votes off it, which is a horrible visual, but I'll give it to you there. And a lot of those constituencies will be split like that. And you're right, it's not fair if you then vote Reform to get something that you didn't vote for if the Greens win. So it's an interesting policy. It reminds me of, because this went worldwide, what he said yesterday. Australia was asking me to comment on it, and the show that I went on said, well, the host said, I had this idea ages ago in Australia where those who vote Greens should not have access to coal, fuel or anything within their constituency. They should only have access to green policies.
I'm very for what Zia said about building detention centres, but I would like to point out that if I lived in an area... But my bigger point is we're all going to have to accept this. We're as soft as anything in this country. We're not going to get anything done unless we say we've got an issue. We can't moan about the lack of will of politicians or bitch every single day because of headlines like this and then not be prepared to... You know, I said to Zia yesterday, it's all well and good to front page of the Sun if you're waking up 200,000. It's appalling, right? The only way this is going to be dealt with is by politicians who have the will, the desire to not only do it, but face huge criticism, not unrest, but there will be. I said to him, it's not going to be like Trump's ICE patrols, but people will be picked up and will be put in detention centres, and you can just imagine what the left's going to do about that. If you look across the political spectrum, the Greens want to open our borders and give everybody a house. Labour, I'm utterly convinced, don't want to do anything about the boats because they would like these people to vote for them. That's how I see it. Reform on the other angle, Restore as well, are all saying we need to do something. Whatever happens, the British people are either going to have to accept that this is not going to go away, or they're going to get a government that says this is not going to be nice, it's not going to be easy, but it needs to be done. That's it.
Exactly, and England's just a very, very lucrative place, or the UK in general, for these people, and that's obviously the issue here. I mean, these people cross through multiple different safe countries to get here. I mean,
I thought everybody else was at war. But is it not at war in France?
Well, to be fair, exactly. France is a safe country. To be fair, I think the conflict in the Middle East is just going to rattle even more of these crossings. Iran is a massive... we take a lot from Iran. Over 4,000 last year, and that's a big issue because they come from, yes, a country of conflict, but a very dangerous, tumultuous country. I mean, to pick apart just the refugees welcome argument, I mean, just last week there was a boat that set out during the night, Saturday to Sunday. Now, the engine wouldn't start, it failed. 17 people rescued at sea because it started to sink. The boat with the remaining 65 people on board ran aground, so they got to the beach and they were sort of swimming there haphazardly. Most of them come from countries where you don't get taught to swim, so a lot of them do drown. 2 women arrived on that boat dead, and it wasn't from drowning, it was from asphyxiation, they're saying, and unfortunately it happens a lot on boats, so they were either crushed or asphyxiated. So those parties that would like refugees welcome and would like to encourage people smugglers and horrible dirty gangs to profit off poor vulnerable people, they are the problem. It is not a human rights argument to say that it's fine to keep letting this happen. There are deaths at sea that we can prevent.
I completely agree. And unless the world actually gets its head straight and does something, this is going to get worse. Let's give him his first morning, because he wakes up in Downing Street, refuses everything to do with talk, loathes me with a passion. That's fair enough. This was our Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, in May last year. He had the answer to small boat crossings, did he? I'm not sure. Have a listen.
It is totally unacceptable that anybody is getting on a small boat and crossing the channel to the United Kingdom. The last government lost control of the borders. I'm determined that we'll retake control of the borders. 24,000 people have been returned under this government. That's the highest record for nearly a decade. We've got to keep bearing down on this issue.
Sorry, two things. If you're watching on YouTube, why is he saying that next to the biggest ferry you've ever seen in your life, talking about small boats? And this newspaper article, which is verifiable, said 200,000 have come in and only 7,612 have come back. That was Keir Starmer saying 24,000 have been returned. Oh, some are voluntary. What, because they hate Starmer and the Labour government so much? We came here thinking it was utopia. I'd rather go home. This place is a nightmare. Maybe that's what's going to happen. Maybe we're all going to bugger off to Eritrea or something because Great Britain's on its backside, 6:15. Also, there's a great video out tomorrow. This is the government's video on migrants. This is when they tried to tell us that actually they're doing a very good job about returning. Have a watch.
For the very first time, migrants arriving via small boat will be detained and returned to France in short order. In exchange for every return, a different individual will be allowed to come here via a safe route, controlled and legal, subject to strict security checks and only open to those who have not tried to enter the UK illegally. This will show others trying to make the same journey that it will be in vain and that jobs they've been promised in the UK will no longer exist because of the nationwide crackdown we're delivering on illegal working, which is on a completely unprecedented scale.
That didn't work, did it? It's not going very well, that is it, to be fair.
I mean, you know, these ads are really, really horrible for Starmer's campaign because he's basically vilifying his own voter base. They don't want to see these he's copied them from Trump. That's a straight rip-off from what Trump's been doing over on TikTok in the US very successcally. So I think he's trying to please everyone and pleasing nobody. That is
the most accurate thing you'll say all day. I said it when he was 2.5 years ago. Whenever it is, it seems like a lifetime. If you try and please all the people all the time, you'll end up hacking off all the people all the time. Right, he's got the award this morning. Morning, Pete.
Now, these illegal immigrants that still keep coming over on dinghies, we need to stop giving this money to France immediately at the outset because it just isn't working full stop, isn't it? You know, they're taking all this money off us and it's doing absolutely nothing. Starmer also going abroad, giving money away to somewhere else, giving all this money, billions and billions over years away. But we haven't got this money.
I couldn't agree more. Do you know what really annoys me, genuinely, as I get older and older and head towards the Aberystwyth retirement home for old presenters, yes, is I don't understand. All we hear about is, we talk about it on this station. Yeah. They write about it in newspapers. Politicians either stand up and say, this is abhorrent, or no, let's have some more in. Nobody has done anything. You've heard my plan, right? Even Zia Eustace said that was genius. I would recommission the biggest liner you could find. I would completely recommission it, strip it out, make it somewhere that I would train 2,000 border force, a crack team, right? Yeah. Who would be able to go, no, you're not 11, you've got a white beard, you're 63 and you're trying to take the mickey. No, that's not right. I would do that. I would put the Navy in the Channel. Nobody would set foot in this country. That's not happening. You'd be picked up for your boat and you would be processed within 24 hours. And certainly if you had the papers, which I'm sure would be dodgy, because if you had the papers, you wouldn't come on an illegal crossing. You would be welcome with open arms. Otherwise, you're going to a detention centre, which isn't going to be nice because it's going to say very strongly to you and your mates that you'll no doubt text back home, Great Britain isn't a soft touch. And the reason I think we've reached that moment now is that people who perhaps turned a blind eye, Samara, I say the indigenous population, I don't mean that disrespectfully, the people who go to work, alarm clock Brits, right, are suddenly going, hold on a second, whether I've got an issue with us not being the leader of helping everybody anymore, the fact is I can't get this, I can't get that, I can't see this person, I can't go to that place, but the people that come illegally are getting all of that, and suddenly that word, unfairness, is absolutely front and centre to this, and that's why the silent majority have had enough, in my humble.
Yeah, and that's the the bottom line for the British people. Unfairness has always not been tolerated in this country because we are meant to be a fair and just country where everyone gets treated equally. But no, that's absolutely not the case in 2026. And yeah, I mean, basically every single pair of feet that gets that crosses onto our beaches is costing us £40,000 per year to upkeep. And economically, that's not a stable argument either. So this doesn't work on any sort of front. But unfortunately, I mean, I like your plan, JK, but you will want to be prepared to be the most vilified man in Britain, the devil incarnate.
What I'm trying to say is, and I'm really interested in all those people from the Greens or the Labour Party who say, oh, this is unfair. I saw a woman on some interview yesterday. She's got, oh, you're all fascists, we should let migrants in. And I want to say to her, if you were in a road traffic accident and couldn't be picked up by an ambulance, or needed a life-saving operation, couldn't have it, or had a child who was unfortunately attacked or stabbed by somebody who shouldn't be in this country, and before you get on me, yes, people... Do you know what a woman said to me the other day when I was having this debate? I meant to say this to you.
Yeah.
She said white men rape women as well, and I went, but that's not a reason to allow unvetted men into your country. I just think those people who live on that planet of, oh, I think we should be fair. I get it, but the fact is, it is to the detriment of people in this country who are working and paying their taxes and are missing out. So you're right. I said it 20 minutes ago. Has any politician got the will, the verve, the balls, the thick skin to go, I don't care whether you disagree with me. That's what I've been voted in to do, and I'm going to do it. And I don't give a damn if 50% of this country think I'm the devil incarnate. It needs to be done. It needs to be cleaned up for the sake of this country and its people and the people who come here and provide and earn and work and live their lives correctly. Because I will just end by saying, as I say every day, because you have to, it's important. The guy who picks me up, they'll go, he's off on his story again. Yeah. He came from Bangladesh 40 years ago with his two brothers and his dad said, you make a success, you learn the language, you work hard. He's built a business. Samara, when I talk to him every night, or rather he talks to me, he is more angry about illegal migration than I am, because he did it properly, like the girls that came and do our makeup here at Talk, who came from Poland and built a business and paid tax and give people jobs. They're more angry than I am.
Exactly. I mean, that's Shabana Mahmood's words herself, even though I've got a lot of issues with Shabana. She also said the same. Community cohesion is not where it should be, because people are wondering whether or not this, people came here legally or not. Look at every single time there is a crime or a rape or anything like that, the public does want to know, is it someone who is here illegally?
Yeah.
Is it a British citizen? They want to know this because they are absolutely infuriated and sick to the back teeth.
And look what happened with Southport.
Yeah,
the government absolutely could have told everybody that it was not an illegal migrant. It was a young boy from Cardiff, actually, as it turned out.
Choir boy,
now, I personally think the government let that continue because that gave Starmer the chance to jump up and say everybody's far right. But the bigger issue is, you're right. If we look at it in a balanced way, every time something goes wrong, people will immediately go, it's an illegal migrant. So they're actually causing problems by allowing so many people to come in unvetted. Listen, we can talk about it forever. 0344 499 1000. Loads of response. Bill, Samara, the Ministry of Defence should build a tented camp on Salisbury Plain for migrants and get the army to guard and secure it. Hello to Cliff in Berkshire. He says there is a potential bonus from the new detention camps, guys. If they clear the backlog, then these camps could be used to house thousands of offenders, such as shoplifters who are having a free ride. No, you can't lock up people simply for going into a shop and nicking things. It's their right, isn't it?
Currently, yes. Currently
Come
it is.
on, you can't expect people to go to work and pay tax. Just don't work and go to... No. Rogers in Wales, that's bright. It's fair to house migrants in green voted areas, Jez. It's better to house them in areas where the majority voted to accept them than house them where the majority voted not to. I'll take that. I'll take that point. Keith says, morning both. I personally think regardless of the local election results on Thursday, Starmer will hang on for the whole term like a limpet. Apologies to any limpets who are offended by being compared out there to Keir Starmer. Hello to Bill in Romsey. No, Frank in Newark.
Oh, all right.
Can I do my joke about where he comes from? Obviously not. I'm simply going to say Newark Could well be an anagram. Jezza, I'd sooner have a detention camp than have all the net zero crap they're surrounding my village with, solar panels, batteries everywhere. Very interesting. Take your point. Hello to Bill from Romsey. Morning, JK and Samara. Now we hit nearly 200,000 illegal migrants and the PM disappears abroad. Never answers the questions that affect his people. All this means that when a new government comes in, it will be a 10-year job to fix the economy. Anne's in Devon. Morning, Anne. Hi, Jez. The illegal migrants coming to our country will continue because I think this Labour government doesn't want to stop them because they have them to vote. There's so much of this, by the way. Damon's in Wigan. Nice to see Samara and the old man. Nice. The illegal migrants issue will never end because no matter which government's in power, the civil servants will never allow the government to do anything. What is going to take? What is it going to take before civil servants keep their opinion out of government's wishes?
Well, Liz Truss said that really well on your show a couple of weeks ago. That interview since gone viral because she spoke a lot of sense that day. The blob, as she calls it.
I had Lord Daniel Hannan on the other day, and he said there are dark forces, and he said, whatever your political party, he said, honestly, and he's an intelligent man, he said, you go into power or you get elected with great belief about change, and you're just crushed.
But that's why you need someone anti-establishment. I mean, just look at Donald Trump, who, for all his faults, was able to fix the illegal immigration crisis, which was 1,000 times worse over in America. They had millions crossing the border every single year. Now, those crossings are cut down by 96%. That's what the recent figures said, which shows you that if you have got a strong man who's willing to be vilified, who's willing to almost get assassinated for some of the things that he's going to do, then maybe it'll just work. But it seems like that's how sort of pressure cooker this moment is for the country.
You could almost say the civil service is a shadow cabal, isn't it? Because if you and I'm not trying to get into too much of a debate. We haven't got much time, but the truth of the matter is, and it came home to me a couple of years ago with Rwanda, right? I don't have to agree with Rwanda or the pace of it, but I came in here one morning to discover that a group of civil servants in the Home Office, so were they against the idea of Rwanda, that they used taxpayers' money to get a lawyer to fight a democratically elected government's policy in court and won.
That sounds about right.
Sorry, what? No, but it doesn't sound right at all. That's madness.
It sounds right for how those systems operate and who the powers that be are. Yeah, we are run by a bunch of people that we didn't elect, that's for sure, allegedly, I will say. But I think there are enough prime ministers who would absolutely say that that's the case.
I love having you on it. God, where's half an hour gone? You could talk forever to Samara Gill. Morning, travelling Boz.
Morning, JK and the breakfast team. Travelling Boz here. Of course, you cannot go more than 30 seconds without mentioning Starmer and the immigration and the boats coming in. They go hand in hand. Absolutely. 200,000? I think that's just the tip of the iceberg. What about the rest of them? There's more than that. We've got another 3 years of this. Absolutely shocking. And by the way, Starmer is toxic. As soon as he opens his mouth.
Welcome to Down the Local, the show that goes from pub to pub across the country, speaking to the punters about the subjects driving us all nuts at the moment.
Rachel Reeves, Rachel Thieves, Rachel McCown.
I don't really know Meghan Markle. I know Meghan Markle's from Suits, and that's about it.
I don't know about anyone else, and I don't know where this is going. I have 0% beard, and I feel
Raising the flag, I think, is symptomatic of its desperation.
Is public transport good value for money?
No, it isn't.
You really don't like speaking to people.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to 6:30 on Tuesday the 5th of May. We talk, of course, the home of common sense and the home of you wonderful alarm clock Brits. If you're up and at it this morning after the bank holiday, I don't know what you're doing. Are you at work, on the way to work, trying to get in the bathroom because the kids are... My kid yesterday got a magic set. Tried to tell me everything about magic all afternoon. Maybe you're just back from the night shift. We want your views and opinions on the news of the day. 0344 499 1000. We've just been talking with Samara Gill about the front of the Sun today. Just one more small boat and arrivals will hit 200,000 in 8 years. More people have arrived in this country than the size of York. And contrary to what your Prime Minister says, 200,000 have come in and 7,612 have been sent back. Good morning, Adrian.
Morning, Jeremy. Morning, Samara. This is Adrian from East Sussex again. Your comments about the green, putting asylum detention centres in green areas and how that may not be fair or whatever. I think the whole point of reform's policy is to actually get a proper turnout of the electorate. I've heard so many people from London, for example, saying, I never voted for Khan. And when they're questioned, well, who did you vote for? They said, oh, it wasn't worth voting. I believe the Gorton and Denton by-election turnout was just 47%. So half the electorate aren't voting. So if you've got an area and the Greens are contesting it, you need to get off your bum and go and vote. I think that's the whole point of it, and it seems to make perfect sense to me. Good luck all.
I think it's a really, really, really good point, and it's something that infuriates me. It seems an awful lot does, but genuinely on this, don't bitch about something and then not use your democratic vote. I'd like to hear from you, right? I told you how we have to do this. I'm not interested in how you're going to vote.
Yeah.
Are you going to vote on Thursday? Are you going to vote on Thursday, or are you going to be one of those people who says, I don't give a damn? If you don't give a damn, you can't then moan about what's going on in this country. I think that's fair enough, right?
Absolutely. Adrian makes a really salient point there. It's so important. You just can't have a single complaint if you don't vote.
Exercise your democratic right.
Yeah, totally. But that's also how we got into this Starmer mess in the first place. You know, almost there is something to say that maybe we got the Prime Minister that we voted for because not enough people probably turned out, although it was a pretty hopeless election back then. But yeah, I wouldn't encourage anyone to vote a specific way. But I think...
It's not about how you vote, in my opinion. The democracy. If Thursday happens or a general election happens, let's just say last time, and it didn't go as I wanted it to go, it's still a democracy. I still then want that government to make Britain okay. That's why I'm so hacked off. But I can't have, I think, brilliant point, Adi, seriously. Stop moaning unless you're going to... Are you going to vote on Thursday? 0344 499 1000. Not how, not interested. Not interested. 87222. Or are you one of those people who's going to come on and say to me, no, I can't be bothered, I can't be asked? But you don't have there's no skin in the game then.
No, absolutely not. I've spoken to enough people out on the streets that are so miffed off with the country. But then when I ask them, well, did you vote? No. Well, go on, get to the polling station. But it is difficult. You know, we've got Thursday elections coming up. We can't really talk about them because of rules and regulations around broadcasting. But I would just encourage everyone to get out there.
Completely agree. Whatever your political persuasion, go and use and exercise your democratic right. 0344 499 1000. Voice notes and calls 87222. Start your message with the word talk. It is quite busy on the breakfast show, isn't it? Have you noticed that?
Oh my gosh, yeah. I'm in a total tailspin.
Slow down. So do it differently.
Never, Jeremy.
Good morning. Welcome to breakfast. It's just gone 6:30 on Tuesday, the 5th of May.
You can do this.
And let's move on to Keir Starmer. I can't. Honestly, I'd die of boredom. Starmer... reported today has been kept away. Where's everywhere? Oh, yeah. I love the front of the Times.
Yeah.
What's that word? Poop. What's that?
Yeah, that's a very, like...
I don't understand that word. Pooch?
I love the Times, but this is that. I can't read English.
Labour MPs plot Starmer pooch after poll losses. Much talk that he's been kept away from local election campaign trails because he's toxic. Yeah, they keep me away. When they're trying to promote talk or have, you know, days out and stuff, they keep me away from that as well. They don't like to put me anywhere. Apparently I'm toxic. I'm joking. Labour's forecast to lose up to 2,000 council seats on Thursday. It comes as Labour MPs are openly discussing plans to demand that Starmer set a date for his resignation. He's also facing a Muslim voter backlash as a major poll by the Policy Exchange today finds that almost half will vote tactically to boot Labour out, with support from the Muslim section of our country collapsing from 80 to just 33%. Muslim voters rank Gaza as more important than the economy. Let's talk about Keir Starmer. I had this moment over the weekend where I thought, maybe we do need him to stay because the alternative is too frightening.
Well, exactly.
Which is frightening in itself.
Well, we talk about exercising our vote. I think we might end up with the Prime Minister we didn't even vote for because the Labour Party will end up choosing, it seems, someone to replace Starmer. I mean, he's going to stick in there. He's not going to resign.
Do you not think
Everyone can forget about that. No way. He's going to have to get booted out by his party. I think there'll be some really strong feelings on Friday to make a move. We've heard over the weekend that Wes Streeting has got over 80 people behind him.
He might do, but the Labour membership, this is what I was told, that if Streeting moves, Rayner or somebody on the left has to move because he will be anointed without an election. If you take Wes Streeting to the membership, he doesn't win. So somebody would have to jump up.
That is a very good point, but Rayner is also facing issues because some believe that if she was in power, considering she didn't do GCSE maths, or at least that's the allegation,
I failed maths 6 times.
Well, yeah, I was also horrific at maths.
I'm not sticking up for Ange, but I was rubbish at maths.
But would you run the country, or
Easily
would you like to
tomorrow.
run the country?
Easily
exactly. And that's the thing. I actually go against that because Churchill didn't even go to university, so you can put that in perspective. But I think she's got a lot of political prowess in some sort of way. The issue is that people are saying the markets will be spooked if she comes into power. Maybe
what,
there's
they're not
an element...
spooked right now by a chance we can't add up?
Well, there's that
I'm not
too.
sticking up for Angela Rayner at all, because I did have that moment over the weekend where I thought, oh my God, this is no good at all.
Reeves and Starmer are sort of a package deal. I think if they do go, they'll go together.
It's a great story. Thank you, Christian. I got to read this. I'm sorry to cut you off.
Oh, go on.
How often did you fail maths O-level? I failed it 6 times.
I didn't even do it.
This is in the Mail today. £250,000 spent by the government to take the racism out of maths. Sorry? What? Sorry, now I've got my glasses. Academics have been given £250,000 of taxpayers' money to decolonise maths, science and geography lessons in schools. Organisers of the 2-year project claim that these subjects have colonial entanglements and legacies resulting in biases, inequalities and injustice. What's 4 fours?
12.
No, it's 16, you illiterate. Honestly, no wonder you failed. But more than that, I was just going to say how utterly racist of you to say, how is maths racist? Could somebody please help me? Oh, dear, Samara, no wonder you began...
And I'm half Indian. I should know.
What's 5 times 5?
5 times 5, 25.
Brilliant. What's 6 times 6?
36.
What's 9 eighths?
Oh God, 56?
72, woman. And I this isn't good.
I'm getting Jeremy Kyle right now. I'm going to shrink away.
Don't. I'm going to shrink away.
Jeremy, what's 12 times 12?
What? 144.
Okay, God.
Listen, I failed maths all over, but if you take me into the bookies, I can work out any odds on any winning bet. But there you are.
My political
the government's given a bunch of people 250 grand to take the racism out of maths. I can't do it anymore. I give up. What do you think, Starmer? Seriously.
What do I think? I think that, look, he's going to use the war in Iran and just the general state of the economy to try and stick in there like black mold. Look, there was a leadership contest during the Gulf War and they still removed Thatcher in the Conservative Party. Yep. Boris, he kept banging on about Ukraine during that time and they still removed him. So
they always say, don't they, that the Labour Party doesn't have a structure to get rid. But the interesting thing for me is that moment when Labour MPs are stuck between support for a man because of either the thought of the turmoil or anything else, they are suddenly going to get emails, or will probably be getting them anyway, which is going to say you're going to lose your seat if you stay with this man. But of course, if you go further to the left, would that encourage people? Or I don't know. Listen, for me, they're dead men and women walking. There's no way Labour will win the next election in a million years.
No way, but if they do lurch further to the left, then they have got a chance. I think that Polanski's very aggressive campaign against them is really winning at the moment, and there can't be enough said about that. And I think that a Rayner leadership would look like something similar to what the Greens have, but maybe a little bit more sensible, dare I say it. I almost can't say that in a serious way. I think Streeting would be my top choice if I had to choose someone to replace him, just because I did see him during the Golders Green when there was that ambulance attack. He did come and he had some sort of conviction about him. He actually knew where he stood. You're going to hate me for this. We're choosing the lesser of three evils
This
here.
is the man this is the man, and I have every right to say this about West Streeting. This is the man who said, I'll sort out the health crisis.
Well,
and on day one, gave junior doctors nigh on 30% with nothing in that deal that meant that they couldn't come back 12 months later and demand the same and be on strike. You want that man with that gravitas to run this country. No, you're right. It's an absolutely... If you look at that front bench, and there's something in this... Somebody said to me the other day, Samara, they've not ever had real jobs. They've gone from student unions to Fabian societies to local councils. They haven't grafted. That isn't me sticking up for anybody else, but so many of your politicians today have never lived in the real world. And I look at that Labour front bench, and I'm with you. Ed Miliband was absolutely thrown out by the British public in 2015. Angela Rayner hasn't paid her tax correctly. I'm sure there might be a reason. I don't know. The list is endless, but then you look at the Tory front bench, you know, and you say, Kemi Badenoch yesterday was saying Britain needs zero tolerance on crimes that make our lives a misery. You're quite right, but you're not cutting through. It was your party that got rid of all the police under Theresa May. I think Badenoch's a bit good, probably the right leader at the wrong time. She's not cutting through. Politics is absolutely fractured, but the Labour Party, in my humble opinion, they probably will change him, but they're not going to win the next election. So put yourself in West Streetings or Angela or something. You could be Prime Minister for 3 years. It's worth going for. You're going to lose your seat after that, aren't you?
Well, exactly. I think they're looking for the right time to pounce now. Now it's just a timings thing. And obviously we know from last week that Starmer has all his MPs whipped into line, quite literally. But that's a very short-term coercive strategy in order to get everyone under control quickly while he still can. I think, look, it's going to be really difficult to get him out of there. He's sticking in there. He's got this sort of unwavering belief in himself that he believes he's a man who can save the country. And I think that's really, really crazy stupid at this point. I just see Jeremy's face. If you're listening, he's wincing.
Who thinks they can save the country?
He believes that...
West Streeting?
No, Starmer. He's
save the country. He can't even save his Oh, and he said marriage. I mean, did you hear that yesterday? Mrs. Starmer's moved out of 10 Downing Street, allegedly.
Has she?
Doesn't like being in the goldfish bowl.
I thought he said in a recent interview that she is who advises him and she wants him to stay Prime Minister, and it's all her. She's the Lady Macbeth behind the silk screen.
Well, he went to Armenia and she went to the in-laws. I've no idea. I mean, listen, it's not for us to cast aspersions. I've been married 3 times and I'd hardly be the person that should tell you how to make things work. But, you know, it's interesting that 2 years in, when apparently she doesn't like the fact that he's hated so much.
Oh, really?
That's just a shock.
Well, she's been very ineffective, I must say, as a sort of First Lady of the United Kingdom. She's never there. She's barely you never see her.
You're getting it now, Vic.
No, well, it's true. I mean, I genuinely, you know, the Jewish community, she is Jewish.
Yeah, I agree with that.
She should be there for them. She should have been at those sites, but she's equally as in a leadership position as Starmer is. You know, we've had some really iconic First Ladies of the UK, and she's been absolutely barely present. So I think it's on both of them. She's sort of half-footing it. He's sticking in there. It's sort of like some sort of part-time job for them.
Well, there you go. 0344 419 1000. Text to 87222. It's Talk Breakfast, the home of common sense, on the day that the Sun reports that we're about to hit 200,000 illegal migrants into this country in 8 years. It's bigger than the town of York. We've managed to send 7,601 back. Did say if you're angry about what's going on, you should. I'm not interested how. You should go and vote on Thursday, right? This is interesting. I'd love to vote, but for the second year running, we've got no damn vote in Derbyshire, says Lynn. I'm not happy, says Darren in Cornwall. I wish I could vote, Jez, but we're not having elections here. It's utterly bloody ridiculous. We should tip our hat to reform on this time, because Nigel Farage and his party took the government to court and got 4.7 million people the chance to vote. That in itself is disgusting that people can't vote.
No, absolutely not. I mean, it is, but it's not surprising. And I think that those... interestingly, Kevin Badenoch was challenged over the weekend on another channel about why don't you call for a general election? What's stopping you from doing this? And
she's over if that
well,
happens.
exactly.
Because she won't win, she'll lose the job.
Well, precisely. She'll be like a turkey voting for Christmas and all that. So I think it's very interesting, because I think Reform's the only one sort of calling for that general election. Will it come sooner than 2020?
You talked about the markets being spooked if Angela Rayner got the job. I wonder why the markets aren't spooked already at the appalling economic... I mean, don't get me on the thieves. I mean, Richard III, I can't even have her. How did she make... If you feel waking up this morning as an alarm clock Brit that you lack the inspiration to believe you can achieve anything in life, look at Rachel Reeves. Morning, Matt.
Hi, Jez, Matty Warrington. Just got here ready to do another big week on the parcels. So, 600,000 families got more than £32,000 in benefits. Why do we bother? Why do we get up and go to work in the morning when people are just sucking the life out of this country?
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 7:15 in a tick. Isabel Oakeshott, I've got no music. What's going on? Oh, I am. Can I just share with you my life, just for 10 seconds? Because I am getting old, Samara, and my son, who's on a train to college, just texted me about how the trains were messed up. So I texted, this is what I tried to text.
Yeah.
Don't worry, call me later and I'll sort out your tickets. Somehow, I actually managed to send him, don't worry, let me know later and I'll sort out your giblets. How does tickets become giblets? And he's just said you're an idiot.
I start to wonder, as you said, predictive text, what are they predicting? What have you been typing to others that would make them think that?
Oh.
Jeremy.
What? That's quite worrying. Aren't giblets what you pull out of the bird?
Indeed. Yeah, I thought so.
Granny used to...
Well,
Christian?
Granny...
Christian! Unbelievable comment. I wish you'd all heard it. Listen, overnight, we have other news. Trump threatening to blow Iran off the face of the earth after he sunk 7 Iranian boats in the Straits of Hormuz as part of his Project Freedom to end the blockade. Meanwhile, we have had reports overnight that Iran has fired missiles into an UAE oil facility. We'll say a very good morning to our international editor based at this moment in Dubai. Isabel Oakeshott, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. Well, I'm happy to report it's all very quiet here this morning, but it was quite a shock, I'll be honest, when we got missile alerts again yesterday around about 5 o'clock. It's been so peaceful here in Dubai for the last month during the ceasefire. Life's kind of been returning to normal. It is a bit quieter because I think the Foreign Office is still quite negative about encouraging tourists to come here. But it's been like normal. The schools went back after a period of online learning. The schools went back 2 weeks ago and everything seemed pretty good. And then out of the blue, yesterday, everybody's mobile phones started bleeping. And that was the first of a series of alerts that went off yesterday evening. Everyone's safe, nobody hurt. As usual, the defence systems here kicked in brilliantly. But it's another unprovoked attack on the UAE by Iran. I mean, the UAE has been unbelievably tolerant of what's been going on, has resisted hitting back, knowing that the region is a powder keg, and to do that risks an even greater conflagration. But how much will they take? You know, this is just absolutely outrageous. You know, it is hammering the economy here with all the best will in the world. And this is a country that has never been an enemy to Iran. And the reason it's targeted is because it's a provocative act by the Iranians, because they know how many Westerners are here and they know that it ups the ante. So I guess I'm afraid we're back to online learning this morning. No parent wants that. We all thought we'd only done it once with COVID and we wouldn't have to do it again. And there's a sort of nervous moment now for the region while we wait to see how this develops, and is it going to escalate quite dramatically?
Let's just hear Trump. Good, great analogy. And I want to ask you a couple of things in just a tick, because I know Samara does. Just listen to Trump overnight, peeps. Have a listen.
They have no Navy. They have no Air Force. They have no anti-aircraft equipment. They have no radar. They have no nothing. They have no leaders, actually. The leaders happen to be gone also. But can't let them have a nuclear weapon, or you'd have problems like nobody would believe. And it's going very well.
Obviously, his English is worse than my 2-year-old's. They have no nothing. I would say this to both of you ladies. If they have no nothing, they're doing remarkably well, because the biggest superpower in the world's not sorted this in 67 days, has it, Isabel?
Well, what they do have is control of a kind over the Straits of Hormuz, which is everybody has become very over familiar with exactly where it is and how important it is. And you know, there are parallels here with trying to root out the Taliban in Afghanistan. You know, you've got a long coastline, just as you've got in Afghanistan, mountain caves and Taliban Afghans who know the territory and will always know the terrain a lot better than any incoming Western forces. So you've got a huge stretch of water, and the Iranians only have to say that they've mined bits of it for insurers to say, you're not going through that if you're an oil tanker or a cargo ship from anywhere else in the world. So the threat is enough. You know, it doesn't actually have to be real, that people are not naturally going to want to insure ships to go through there. And that has huge global implications. We know this already. We're seeing the impact in the UK. And it's only going to get worse. This is a complete kind of logjam now. You know, nothing much has moved. A handful of vessels are getting through, and I believe that a ship has gone through under US escort, a Western cargo ship. But, you know, it's nothing. There used to be over 140 going through a day. And now it's like 1 or 2, 3 or 4, maybe 5.
Just quickly, because it's great to get you. There's so much I need to get into little time. Quick question, touching upon, Samara and I were just talking about this, touching on what you said in that last bit about the UAE. Yes, there's Westerners living here and they're being attacked. Do you see a situation, because I think this is what Trump's hoping for, I could be wide of the mark, you'll both tell me I'm wrong. Can you see a situation where countries in the Middle East, like Dubai, like the South, have had enough and actually join forces with the Americans? Do you think that they will sit forever and have missiles fired at them by Iran?
I don't. And the rhetoric that was coming out from official sources from the UAE last night was really tough. You know, this is not me talking about my own contacts. This is what the Ministry of Foreign Affairs publicly issued in a statement last night. that they reserve every right to protect the sovereignty and the safety of the UAE. Now, reading between the lines, I mean, they've been saying versions of that for a while, but not as tough as that. I think that they are reaching the point of, look, this is absolutely completely intolerable for this to carry on. And I think what is fascinating more widely is the extent to which this conflict has caused a complete realignment of this region. And you're seeing things that you'd never have thought possible. You know, the cooperation between, for example, Israel and the UAE on certain matters, which might have been unthinkable not that long ago. And there has been a fracture of already delicate relationships between the Gulf countries. And we've seen in the last week, UAE leaving OPEC, the oil producing group. And so this has got profound longer term implications for the region. But for now, we're all just concerned about what's coming in the next few days.
So grateful to you. You text us overnight. We obviously hope you're safe. Keep us involved and keep us updated. Talks International editor, the excellent Isabel Oakeshott. Samara, just quickly, I could speak to you all day. There's so much to talk about. Page 8, the Telegraph. It's a really interesting piece. Britain now down to just 5 frigates. HMS Duke's demise leaves the Navy, the once great British Navy, with 5 damn frigates. Judging by how long it took HMS dragging your feet to get to Cyprus, we're a laughing stock, Samara. That's what I'm saying every day, man.
It's a big issue, actually. Look, I mean, we're not ready. You've already got Javier Milei, the Argentinian president, through leaked American documents saying that he wants to invade
Malvinas.
He wants to take back the Falklands. And I think that's because we've been left with the tide out and we're naked and we've got absolutely no warfare. And the thing is, I just want to stress that it's very important for the UK to rethink the entire military complex that we have. It's old, it's rusty, and it's completely archaic. And unfortunately, China and Russia have moved forward through drone warfare, through very cheap displays of being able to defend their country.
By good procurement deals as well, right?
Massively. And it's very dystopian to think about cheap warfare, but that's what the future's going to hold. It's not about these rickety ships that don't work anymore and that the water pumps can't even filter through. So I think that we're going to have to rethink this whole process, but it's probably not going to happen under the current
It's really interesting to think that a country that was the leader, you know, the British Navy was we are an embarrassment, unable to defend ourselves, unable to take part in almost anything, and yet all of this is going on at home, billions of pounds, and I'm sorry to bring it back, 200,000 migrants in 8 years illegally into this country. We're giving them everything, and we can't even defend ourselves. Now, I don't think that's right-wing. I think that's just total lack of common sense, don't you?
Of course, a borderless country is one without any sovereignty really at all, and I think unfortunately now Britain is experiencing the actual consequences of really weak leadership for such a long time. And just to circle back quickly, more stormed the beaches than stormed at D-Day or have stormed the beaches illegally. So there you go. Happy Tuesday, everyone.
She's got to go. She's going to do it regularly. Thank you so much, indeed. Samara Gill on the papers. So much you're waking up to. Starmer, small boat, Sir Ian Duncan Smith, former Tory leader, live and exclusive next on Talk Breakfast.
I was sat in the tent and he was showing me through photos of his phone, scrolling through. This was barbaric, horrific stuff. Blokes going through walls in vehicles and then jumping out and shooting everyone. You know, his WhatsApp picture was him with a mask on, with a gun like that.
You're in a tent with this guy?
I'm in a tent with this guy, and actually he's just showing me this stuff. I'm just thinking, this is not the kind of bloke you want to be coming to the UK.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk. Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, my friends. Just gone 7 o'clock. Either welcome back or welcome along. It is Tuesday, the 5th of May. This is Jeremy Cullen, Talk Breakfast, the home, of course, of Alarm Clock Brits, and where you get common sense and where your views on the news of the day are always welcome. You can call us and leave a voice note, make a live call. 0344 499 1000. You can text 87222. You're waking up to the news, front page of The Sun. We've hit 200,000 illegal migrants have arrived in the United Kingdom in the last 8 years. 8 years. And just, by the way, to stick a hole, excuse the pun, in Keir Starmer's one-in, one-out theory, only 7,612 have been deported. Now, whether you think all of these people are refugees or, like me, you think these are chances taking advantage of Britain being too soft, the fact is the impact that has had on this country in terms of public services, in terms of almost everything, has created tension. It's created the belief that it's unfair and it's wrong. And all sorts of politicians are talking about ways to change it. Yesterday, Reform said we're going to build detention centres inside constituencies and councils that have voted Green by way of some sort of punishment. There seems to be an acknowledgement amongst most people that something needs to be done about a problem that is tearing not just this country, but this world almost apart. And somebody asked me earlier about how you enforce change. What you do is you vote, right? When we're in the middle of an election, be it local or national, on radio and television, there are rules. It's not for us to say or give any implication there isn't balance. I don't want to talk about how you're going to vote. I'm simply going to say this. Are you going to vote on Thursday? Are you going to exercise your democratic right? If you look at the last by-election in Gorton and Denton, if you look at almost every general election, it's less than 50%. I'm not having a go, but we can't moan and bitch about what's going wrong if we then sit at home and don't go and vote. And so many people are saying, I can't because we're not allowed to. And certainly that was at Labour and Tories' door, and Reform went, and 4.7 million people now can. But if you can vote on Thursday, whatever your political persuasion, surely to deal with the things that matter to you, you know, there's people that go, well, that's not going to make any difference. You don't know that. It might. Morning, Shane.
Morning, Jez Meister. Shane here in Bournemouth, putting an early shift in, putting an engine back together on a van. I'm going to be voting on Thursday, mate. It's going to be the first time ever. Normally I leave it down to my mum to do that, but I think this time I'm going to stick my oar in and do a bit of voting myself. For the simple fact is, I want the Labour government gone. I want Starmer gone. I want a lot of them gone. This country's got to change, mate, because it's gone to the dogs big time. And I feel partly responsible for not voting every year. OK, cheers, mate.
I think he's right. I think we have to take responsibility. 7:05, 0344 499 1000. Sim, you can do one just to lighten the mood. Nottingham Forest, the Magic. Yeah, as a West Ham fan, that's going to wind me up. I thought this was quite interesting before we introduce our next guest. Brian. Today's politicians, in my mind, have no real-world experience, no gravitas, and most important, no wisdom. I first voted in the 70s. Just look at the CVs of the politicians of all parties then. They had all been through World War II in all ranks. They were captains of industry. This country is on its backside. Next is a guest I love having on, and I mean this irrespective of politics. I have the greatest respect. He's the Prime Minister we should have had in this country, former Conservative Party leader who lived a life and worked and has gravitas. Sir Ian Duncan-Smith. That was a nice opening by me, wasn't it? Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you. Yeah.
It's an interesting point. Let's just talk about Thursday. We're not talking about how people vote. Exercising your democratic vote is massively important, Ian, isn't it?
Well, people died to defend our right to vote. In the Second World War, my father, put his whole life on the line for 5 or 6 years to defend against Nazi Germany and their suppression of any voting rights that we might have had. Our freedom, as I always say to lots of people, freedom is not free. It's the most expensive item we can ever have in our lives because it costs lives to defend it. And, honestly, I say to anybody who doesn't vote and gives up, well, if you give up on voting, you give up on life because it's what we are about. And I know you can get frustrated with politicians. I am one. I know exactly how you can feel about these things, that people won't change things and that you need change. But it does happen, and change can happen, and things can be better and different. And we're going through a period of that at the moment. So I do recommend people get out there and vote. I mean, I agree with your caller. I mean, this Labour government is in complete shambles. I've never seen a government since I've been in politics which has collapsed so fast, doesn't seem to have any concept of what it's really about. On the one side, they're literally dictating to us through things like the net zero changes and industry being told no matter whether people want to buy their electric cars, they have to make them, thus losing money, all this sort of stuff. They won't drill to get oil and gas to strategic reserves. Why? Because their ideology against that is so incredible. I mean, it's part of it's driven by ideology. The other part's driven by no knowledge at all. It's a complete mess. So, yeah, go out and vote, for God's sake.
And I think there's a point in that. Whatever one's political leanings, this government got into power for two reasons. One, complete exasperation with the Conservative government, your party, which I know you share. And also, one of the reasons is, and look at Khan in London with respect. There are 12 million people in London. I think it was 17% voted last time. So don't moan and bitch to me about London and net zero and how much your congestion charges and how he drives around in a bulletproof Range Rover and the tubes are a disaster if you're not prepared to do something about it. And I'm absolutely with you. I get really exasperated, Ian, when people say there's no point. There is a point. There is absolutely a point, because your vote can make the difference.
Yeah, it is. It's true. I mean, I served in the army. Why? What for? Because I wanted to, at the time, do the best I could for my country. And I think it's important. Voting is important. It only happens in council elections in London, for example, once every 4 years, and it happens in government, 5 years, once every 4 or 5 years, depending on when they call it. But the reality is, it's important. I'll just give you one example. The last time we had to vote for Khan, he was so unpopular that had everybody turned out, who was against him, we would no longer have this ridiculous mayor, who I think is a national embarrassment, frankly. I've never come across a politician quite so self-obsessed as this individual, and who, when there's a nasty crime, when there's a problem, when there's some violence, you've got terrible street crime problems, shoplifting crimes in London level, but, he's never there. But when there's the opening of something where he can look popular and everything else, he turns up. He turns up to the opening of an envelope, as far as I can see, but not when the police need support and backing. And I think that's what you get when you don't turn up and vote. You get this man. I can't believe anybody really in London. I've not met a single person who may be a Labour supporter or a Conservative supporter or anybody you name who ever says, I voted for Khan. And the answer is, well, if you didn't vote, that's as good as voting for Khan.
It's quite interesting. A couple of different sides of the story about what we're talking about. Reg Gardner says, completely agree with Ian. My father was a merchant seaman in World War II, and the one thing he used to tell me every day when I was growing up was that if you don't vote, you don't have a voice, and said, I didn't go to war for you not to have your voice. It's disrespectful. Use it. Interestingly, though, the other side of this, Ian, is Kitty in Hove, and I've had loads of this morning. I would absolutely love to vote on Thursday. Apparently, and unfortunately, we're not allowed to. I've got to wait 3 years. That's a massive travesty as well, that there are still areas of this country where people can't vote and show their intention and what they believe is happening in this country, right?
Yeah, it's a shambles at the moment. And the reality, if you remember at the beginning of this process, because these are local elections, not they're national in a sense, but they're local. They're about who's going to help you sort your roads out, who's going to make sure that the crime goes down on your streets, who's going to be making sure that your shops, you have proper shopping streets. I mean, right now we are under threat in all these areas. Some of the charges on rates on shops and the high street, for all the blather about we like to support the high street, some of them may rise by 50% in the next year or two, which is astonishing that there's any shops at all on the high street. Shoplifting, everything else. This is what they're about. And of course, they made a massive mess. They wanted a large chunk of the country not to vote because they had managed to gerrymander a whole bunch of changes to the electoral process in certain key areas. And so they said, oh no, they won't be voting. Well, the reality is that they were found out over that. And now most people are going to get the vote. But you're right. It's a peculiar, patchy system, and we need to make sure that everybody gets that right to vote. But when they do need to vote. I don't want to lecture people because we're all in the same boat about this, but voting is important.
The analogy can only lead me on, we're all in the same boat, to the headline in front of the Sun today, every newspaper reporting it. Just one small boat and the arrivals in 8 years will hit 200,000 illegal migrants. On the day it's reported, despite our Prime Minister's one-in, one-out plea, 7,612 have been deported and 200,000 illegal migrants have come in. It's a record toll. It's the size of York. And as I said in the intro, public services, belief in fairness, all of this is down the drain. I ask you this, former Conservative Party leader, a man with a life before but a political career spanning many years. Do you understand people who say to me, I am sick and tired of hearing politicians say, we'll stop the boats, we'll smash the gangs, we'll make a deal, we'll do this. I feel, love to know what you think, that somebody, whoever that person is, needs to take on everybody in a very hard-faced way, get elected and make some pretty tough decisions, not ice-like bite Trump, but detain and deport and throw people out of this country and send people to detention centres. I don't think we'll have seen the like of it before, but we are at a point where we are just it's getting worse and worse, and nobody seems to have either the political gumption or the will to to deal with this in an absolutely correct way. I really believe that.
There is only one way to deal with this, and I'm afraid when Tony Blair came to power, the first thing he did was to accede completely to the Convention on Human Rights. He then bounded into UK legislation. These are the biggest mistakes made, I think, by arguably any government, because what's happened is we've handed over our power basically to the courts. And now what we have is any Tom, Dick or Harry sort of immediately claiming as soon as they get in, they come for asylums. Many of them are nothing to do with asylum. They're just here. I don't blame them for trying to do this, to get here because they want to get a better life or earn more money or whatever. I don't blame people for wanting to do that. What I do blame is a system that allows them to do it. And we've had this running row about human rights for so long now. To be fair, Kemi has come out completely and said, here is the plan to do it. We get out of the Convention of Human Rights. We no longer leave this power in the courts. We take it back to Parliament. Parliament then has to make that decision.
Do you think if your party had felt that way that Kemi's now announcing, that Farage has announced many times, do you think if 5 years ago somebody in the Tory party had gone, do you know what, this Blair influx is a disgrace, we need to leave the ECHR, it would have made Rwanda work, all those sorts of things. Do you think that the Tory party would be viewed very differently to how it's viewed today, Ian?
No doubt, because this, for most people, apart from all the other bits and pieces of politics, this is a huge issue.
Yeah.
It's a huge issue because they see a lot of cultural change, they see threats. We no way of checking who's coming in. Lots of people who discovered later on that have had problems, been in and out of prison, violent, sexual abusers, these sort of things. We have no way of checking all of this because we have to take them in once they arrive. And the plan, the only plan that will work is to say to people who come over illegally, I'm afraid no matter what, because you came illegally, you are heading back out and you're going to a destination that you will find most uncomfortable. In this particular case, when we had Rwanda, actually the US has used Rwanda to show you that it actually works. Now when that first was announced, I don't know if you remember this, but loads of people fled to Ireland immediately.
Yep.
And the boat numbers literally went through a hole in the floor. And that until they suddenly realized actually that the courts were going to block that, then we couldn't get a flight off the ground. But the reality is just one flight would have been enough at that stage to reverse the process. And you keep on doing it. And look, I mean, we're not alone in this. Germany is now sending people back. You could argue illegally, under the Human Rights Act, but their own human rights.
But they don't sit around and pontificate. But they don't sit around and pontificate and touch their cap to the human rights. See, that's my problem with this Labour government, because there's a cynic in me that says that it suits them to flood this country with illegal migrants and unvetted men, because whether they'll be grateful for what they're getting and end up staying here and voting, I don't know. But there's a word that I keep using in, which you and I have talked about before, which is fairness. I think the British people have not even turned a blind eye before. I think they've just got on with their lives and tried to live right. But suddenly, and you talk about a local election, your average person on the doorsteps, I know this, is talking about not being able to see a doctor, not being able to not ruin your car if you can afford one because the roads are a complete disgrace, not being able to see a dentist, not being able to walk down the high street because everything's closed up, or men from other countries are walking. I was in Bournemouth on Saturday with my son. I've never seen anything like it. That is a fact. I'm not making it up. And I think people's patience has worn massively thin. And I think they're looking and going, this isn't right, isn't fair. I want change.
No, I agree, and I think you can see it elsewhere too, because the spillover. You're quite right about this. Take, for example, the welfare budget. When I'd ceased we'd cut the budget by 30 billion. We'd got more people going back to work, fewer workless households. Then COVID comes along, blows a hole in this. Now what's happening is the big draw is part of it is welfare. You come here, you start getting payments, you get looked after. British people are going to struggle to afford this. I was looking at this the other day at the Centre for Social Justice, which I set up, been looking at the welfare budget. We reckon that it's going to go up by about 75 billion for sickness and disability benefits alone. 75 billion is where it's going. And we simply can't afford that.
How do people who allow that? There was a story over the weekend, wasn't there, that 625,000 households on benefit are now on more than the £32,200 that you get to basically be on, you know, not working. I don't understand how anybody in power believes or even cares that that is sustainable. We are skint. And it gets worse every day. And we hide behind this, oh, well, we don't. This is my point. You're an experienced politician. I'm just an old man on the radio. But here's what I don't get, right? So you've got a population that you are elected to do best by who are missing out and, in fact, are right at the back of the queue because your ideology says, let's be all things to all people, except if they're your people. And I don't understand. I don't consider that far right. I don't consider that wrong to say it. I think that's priorities. And I think the priorities of this government and before, because it should have been stronger, aren't actually for the people who are paying into a system and getting very little back.
Oh, I agree, and that's the trouble. It's ballooned. Since COVID, all the checks were taken off, the face-to-face, the contracts that I introduced were all taken away because of the need to sustain people. But what's happened is we needed to crack back down and get this all back in order again. Yeah. And the truth is, the government is literally torn because here we have a government that's got the huge majority, and yet they panicked at one vote, which was to get the welfare budget down, only at that stage by $5 billion. And whether they liked it or not, their backbenchers threatened to rebel, and the government then didn't go through with it. Now, the government would have got their legislation through because they had such a big majority, but they didn't because they couldn't bear the idea of suddenly having a massive internal row with their own backbenchers. So their backbenchers succeeded. There have been no welfare changes worth talking about. Yes, there's some changes about getting back into work, but the reality is the bill goes up and up and up. And if you talk to Labour politicians that I do, I know quite well, and many of them I'm quite friendly with, they will quietly tell you that this is out of control. And the trouble is, this is where you need a leader, the Prime Minister, to say, right, this is our priority. Number one, we want to stop the boats. Number two, we've got to get the welfare budget down. And number three, we've got to crack down on everybody's experiences on the high street with shoplifting rampant in too many places, threats and violence going on. Three priorities above all else that would affect the British public on their daily lives. We are going to make them our priority. Not some of the nonsense that they get into at the moment, arguing amongst themselves. That is the truth. It's three issues that if they crack down on those three things, people would know their lives improved. And that's where it's gone wrong. That's where politics is going wrong. Far too much this government doesn't seem to understand it was elected to do a job. It's got to do that job. Everybody knows it. Anybody on the
and I think it's a really salient point, and it can become all, you know, about the person that's Starmer. There's stuff just to finish with you today in the paper about, you know, is he going to last? Are they going to send this? Are they going to do that? Oh, we'll hang on. He's threatening an election. What about the alternative? I think the British people, for the first time in a long time, the silent majorities, I tend to call them every day, have just had enough of seemingly being downtrodden and treated worse than people who... And it's very basic. I pay for something, I expect to get it. I don't pay for something, I expect everybody else to get it. I don't mind if I'm still getting it, but now I'm getting nothing, and that is massively unfair. Can I just ask you before you go, I'd love a quick comment, Serene, on Starmer's EU deal. We were doing this yesterday on the show. Off he went to Armenia. For $1 billion a year, he wants to create closer ties with Europe. Is this for the good of Britain, or because he's aiming for a high-profile European job when he gets booted out of 10 Downing Street?
It's not in Britain's interest because they will demand a price for this. The British public, whether he likes it or not, and he hates it, voted to leave the European Union. The problem that they've got is instead of trying, therefore, to get they can control what goes on here in the UK, doesn't have to turn it to Brussels all the time, that freedom should give us the opportunity to get the cost down on making things, to drill for our oil, to do the things that are necessary for Britain. One good example of how we managed that was during COVID when we got the vaccine done ahead of every other country in the world. Why? Because we were able to break free of the shackles of the stupid bureaucracy that told us we could only do testing and trials of vaccines in a certain way. We ended all that. We did it our way because we were in charge. We got it done. There's so much more that we could make happen here in the UK if we got on with it and believed in ourselves again and allowed ourselves to invest in the sort of things that matter. And you made a very good point earlier on, I have to tell you, and it's the thing that I get personally as well as I get from constituents. The pothole situation in the UK is appalling. Cars are damaged, accidents happen, councils don't do enough about it, everybody blames everybody else. Yet there's something so simple as filling up a hole in the road so you could drive safely is beyond the ability of far too many councils. Why? They're too busy spending money on ludicrous things, and we spend so much now on welfare that councils can't get the money they need, and they're so inefficient when they get it, they don't do the things that they should.
There's my point. £1 billion to get closer to the EU. I would categorically, if I was in Downing Street today, put that £1 billion to cure the road problems in this country in a heartbeat.
Don't bother. We've been supporting Ukraine without this loan. And by the way, if we seize the money that Russia has sitting in Belgium, which is over $300 billion, we wouldn't need to give Ukraine a loan. We would give it to them and we wouldn't have to pay for it. The problem is everybody has lost their nerve. We should have seized that money. That so-and-so Putin invaded a free country. His money is sitting, earning money in Belgium and in banks in London and in other countries. If we seize that money today, we would be able to give Ukraine the wherewithal to fight this war and, I believe, defeat Putin. But no, what we have to do is we step away because Belgium doesn't want to do it. Oh, we're worried that people won't invest here again. So here we have the European Union defunct, unable to do this. We should have said, enough's enough. We will only come and help you if you seize that money and you get on and pay that money to Putin. Instead of which, all taxpayers across Europe are having to reach into their pockets to pay for a loan that they're going to have to get paid back by a country called Ukraine. Madness, absolute madness, and he's involved in that madness.
Couldn't agree more. Listen, always an absolute pleasure to have you on. Thank you. Sir Ian Duncan-Smith, former Conservative Party leader, and he hates me saying it, but every time I have him on, people will text me and say, the Prime Minister of this country should have had and didn't have. I quite agree. 7:25. We're live across the UK. Morning, JK. My nephew, who is 54, has never voted and says my vote won't do anything, says Sandra in Hampshire. Appalling. I'm not talking about how you're voting on Thursday, right? I'm not interested. We're not allowed to do that. I'm simply saying, as Sir Ian Duncan-Smith said, we can't sit here and moan and bitch about what's going wrong in this country if we don't enforce our democratic right. Don't give me it won't make any difference. If 1,000 people said that, and 1,000 people then went and voted, it could make a difference. JK, Hungary sent their illegal migrants back. Hungary says it's cheaper to pay the EU fines than keep these people. Oh, you get fined by the EU for getting people from your own country, do you? There you are. That might be a reason not to join them again. Cliff, Jez, you are right to say it's important to vote, but if no party now even remotely reflects my views and concerns, who do I vote for? I was an active member of the Conservative Party, but left when Cameron changed it to Blue Labour. I would prefer real choice, not just a competition as to which suits lives in number 10 and maintains the status quo. Interesting, I get that. Brian from Dorset. As far as the politicians are concerned, if you don't vote, you don't matter. That might twist your arm a little bit. Keith in Nottingham. Morning, Keith. Jez, by next week, there's bound to be a cabinet reshuffle, another government reset. Do you think Reeves will go back to the call centre on minimum wage? I do think IDS should, however, be on the Tory front bench. How is he not on the Tory front bench? He's absolutely beyond... Sorry, I'm not... It's not just about Ian Duncan-Smith, but really, have a look, right? Have a look, Kemi, right? Ridiculous. 0344 499 1000. Morning, Sean.
Morning, Jeremy. Sean from Grimsby. Bit confused when I woke up this morning. So, refugees are welcome in this country, but just not in areas that vote Green. When we say the same, we're far-right bigots. So does that mean the Greens are now far-right bigots? Or are we still far-right bigots? Or are we all just far-right bigots? I'd like just want to know who the bigots are. Cheers, mate. Great show, Jeremy.
crown is facing its gravest test in decades, and the royalty from Talk is your front row seat. With royal reputations under pressure and probing questions about public trust, we unpack every twist and revelation with the biggest names in the business. From the throne room at Buckingham Palace to a mansion in Montecito, we follow every royal ripple. Never miss a moment of The Crown in Crisis. Subscribe to The Royalty from Talk on the app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. This is Breakfast with JK till 10 o'clock. 0344 499 1000 is your telephone number. Text to 87222. We'll do more about that ridiculous small boat migrant number happening 200,000. We'll talk more about Starmer and, of course, about are you going to vote? Why? Just have you? I'm not bothered about how, but right now, 7:30. Some developments overnight. Trump threatened to blow Iran off the face of the earth after he sunk 11 Iranian boats in the Strait of Hormuz as part of his Project Freedom. We say a very good morning to the top military analyst, Sean Bell. Morning, Sean. How are you, pal?
Mr. Kyle, I'm very well. How are you, sir?
Mr. Kyle, I don't usually get that. I said something earlier that will make you smile. Maybe I'm getting soft in my old age. All these military experts and all this, and Isabel was saying from the UAE, some missiles fired into an oil facility yesterday. They were getting pings on their phone out there. That's still going on. I wondered at what point the Saudi Arabias, the Dubais, the powerful nations of the Middle East, whether they support Trump or not, are going to say, hold on a second, we're going to show a bit of force here, Iran. We're not having this anymore. Can you see that happening?
The short answer is no, Jeremy. I think most of the countries in the world now recognise there is no military solution to what is going on there. And actually, the most prudent method is just to keep calm, protect your resources, because when America stops this campaign, there will have to be a negotiated solution. And I think a lot of the countries in the Middle East are getting incredibly frustrated. But making the problem worse is not the answer. And I think, therefore, prudence is probably a great value at the moment.
Trump, overnight, one night we're going to have a ceasefire. Last night we're going to blow Iran off the face of the earth. Again, a question for you. This Straits of Hormuz, to many, obviously now, is the epicentre of this whole argument. I mean, how was this missed? Or is this the Trump mistake, that he didn't believe Iran would do this, or he thought they would crumble? I mean, he said something last night, they haven't got anything. They've got no navy, they've got no army, they've got no leaders. In fact, he used a phrase I've never heard before. He said they've got no nothing, which is an interesting way. But in all seriousness, if they've got no nothing, they're doing quite bloody well, aren't they?
Yeah, the trouble is, Jeremy, all of this is entirely predictable. You know, when I was in the military, we used to war game this very scenario, and it always ended the same way, with Iran's military getting absolutely stuffed by America. But the Strait of Hormuz, they've tailored their defences to control the strait. They've got anti-ship missiles, they've got drones, cruise missiles, fast patrol boats and mines, all of which mean that they can control the Strait of Hormuz. And even now, despite 13,000 targets, with day 67 of the war, America's the global superpower, yet they still have not managed to secure the opening of the Strait of Hormuz. I think the irony of what Trump's doing at the moment, this Project Freedom, was originally sold as a humanitarian initiative to try to liberate the sort of 2,000 boats, 20,000 seafarers that are stranded. If that was true, if you're worried about the seafarers running out of oil and water, just go with a patrol boat or a helicopter and drop some supplies. This is all about the control of the straits. This is all about President Trump getting frustrated of the Iranian intransigence, and also recognising that Iran has quite a lot of leverage now when it comes to talks.
Where do you, I know it's really difficult to ask you. You do this, I see you on everything talking about this. Is this just going to drag on? Is the fear here that so many believe that this wasn't going to be instantaneous, like dragging Maduro out of Venezuela or the country crumbling, because you're not just fighting soldiers, you're fighting an ideology, and the problem with ideology is if you kill one leader, then another one pops up. It's like whack-a-mole, isn't it? And many have criticised Trump and said that was going to happen, and that Starmer and other European countries were right to say, I'm not getting involved. But where does this finish in terms of the world, in your mind? When does it finish? Does it finish even?
Well, I do think, to Trump's credit, with Venezuela, you said with Maduro, plucked it out, that was the end. I think there was a view. If you have to remember back to the start of this, there was a sense that the Iranian people were, the potential for an uprising, and if the leadership was literally decapitated, then actually this could all have been over in a day or two. That's not what happened. Where it's going to end now, the prediction of most military experts now is there is not a military solution, that President Trump will not be able to now negotiate the nuclear deal he wants, because frankly Iran is in a stronger position before. So the least worst option is he just extracts himself, claims strategic success, that he's bombed Iran back, put back all their programs, they're no longer a threat, and lets the West and the Middle East do a negotiated solution, because actually it's in Iran and everybody else's interest to get the Strait of Hormuz open. That will leave lots of unanswered questions, but frankly from where we are, it's probably the least worst option.
Final question. I noticed in the Telegraph today a story that we're currently down to just 5 Royal Navy frigates after HMS Iron Duke is withdrawn due to a £103 million refit that hasn't proved to be successful. Whatever the politics, right, it is fair to say, how embarrassing is it that Great Britain, who once had the best navy of the seas across the world, do you remember HMS dragging your feet, couldn't get to Cyprus? That was an embarrassment. How in the name of God have a series of politicians over 20 years got us to a point of this? It's embarrassing, isn't it, Sean?
I think what's a great tragedy is we were and should be a very proud maritime nation. Yeah. We talked about Ukraine, and the Polish are feeling the front line of that, but we're a distance away from that. Why are we feeling it? Well, the Russian threat to us is in the oceans. It's the submarine threat. It's the high north. We need a powerful navy in order to protect our island nation. And the trouble is we've sort of got this legacy of this sort of post-Cold War expeditionary navy that is not suited to the role that we need today. We've got 2 of these massive great aircraft carriers, which frankly are not properly supported. There's not the funding in place. There needs to be a complete rethink, and that's going to take a decade or 2 to put in place. So yes, I take no pride in this. We deserve, we have a heritage of a very proud navy. We've got some amazing naval personnel, but somehow we've got to rethink this and get the equipment into the hands of people and start protecting our nation.
Good man, Sean. Thank you so much. Just a quick dip in this morning. It was great to get your opinion. Sean Bell, the military analyst, because overnight Trump's saying he's going to blow Iran off the face of the earth. But as Sean says, the Straits of Hormuz that succeed, past American administrations knew were going to be a problem. Doesn't mean, listen, the mad mullahs of Tehran, horrendous, and have backed terrorism from the beginning of time and had a nuclear weapon, have one, I've no idea. Definitely something needed to be done. But I find it astonishing that people haven't gone, well, that's what they're going to do in the Straits of Hormuz. And as a result, right, the world, I'm talking about us, I'm talking about alarm clock Brits, I'm talking about petrol, I'm talking about energy, I'm talking about oil, is going through the roof. Did nobody think that? What the hell's wrong with politicians nowadays? Morning, George.
Hi, Jezza. George from Northampton here. I'm going to be 60 years old this month. And I'm not voting on Thursday because our council hasn't got an election. But otherwise, I would be voting. Like you said earlier, if you don't vote, you can't complain about what you get. Thanks very much.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, the Interactive Emporium. See, everybody's got a snazzy name for their show, haven't they? The Evening, what is it, Exchange with Peter Carboy, sounding great from 7 o'clock. I say that, I haven't been able to listen because I've been busy, but it sounds fantastic. I'm sure it'll be great. Welcome to Breakfast, Tuesday the 5th of May. We're Talks, the home of common sense and the home of free speech. This is the station that tells you the truth. On the front of the Sun today, we're close to achieving 200,000 illegal migrants have arrived in this country in 8 years, which is bigger than the town of York. Starmer told us it would be one in, one out. He didn't say it like that. Only 7,612 have been deported. Keir Starmer, the vultures are circling. I want to play you some about Kemi Badenoch in a while as well. Good point from where... who is it? Ned. He says, I joined the show late this morning. Not sure if you've covered the video yet of Kemi Badenoch confronting an anti-Semite yesterday. If you haven't, take a look. We will do that in the next half an hour. I need to shoot, though, very quickly, to former Conservative government minister. This man was all about Brexit. I want to ask him his opinion on Starmer cozying up to EU. Steve Baker, a very good morning. Welcome to Breakfast.
Good morning, Mr. Kyle.
Why am I getting Mr. Kyle this morning? I feel like I'm in court. And you've got a tie on.
It's because you're so central to the national debate, Jeremy. It's a mark of respect.
Oh, bless your heart. Stevie, good man. Listen, I'm really old-fashioned. I voted to... I'm going to be really honest, as I was yesterday. I voted to leave. This was my opinion, because I believe that Great Britain had a chance to go back into itself. I remember when we were the industrial leaders of the world. I remember what happened to Germany after the Second World War. They went into themselves and created huge success, and that was how I believe growth would come, by building things, making things, selling things, not under the control of people telling us how to build them and where to sell them. Patently, Brexit hasn't happened. Patently, we now have a government that actually would prefer the complete opposite, backed by figures they say, 70% of the country wants back. Yesterday, off he flew to Armenia, our Prime Minister, whilst his premiership in this country teeters on the edge. And we're told there could be, and I quote, a closer deal with Europe and it will cost us £1 billion. A&1, is that not going against the electorate's wishes? And B and 2, isn't there a better way, if he can find £1 billion, to spend that damn money? Maybe in a tax rebate, or maybe dealing with the road issues, as Sir Ian Duncan Smith said earlier, the length and breadth of this country.
Well, that's absolutely right. I mean, there was an absurd front page. It wasn't the Telegraph's fault, but on the one side it said we'd have to pay £1 billion to subordinate ourselves to EU law, and then on the other side that we couldn't afford a navy, and it's just a completely absurd contrast. You asked a few minutes ago what's wrong with politicians today. Well, I'm afraid the truth is what's wrong with them is they don't believe in anything apart from getting re-elected, and that's why they make so many crazy decisions. You know, over the years in particular, we've been told that we needed always to plan to fight with the Americans, and that's why we buy so very expensive equipment, always to be compatible with the Americans and to try and have the very latest cutting edge stuff. But of course, we end up with too little of it, a point I've argued with admirals and generals over the years. This EU reset, so-called, it's just subordinating ourselves to their laws. And I bet you voted leave, as you say, because you care how our laws are made. The big question for your listeners, for us all, is do we care how our laws are made? If we're happy to live under law made by somebody else in an assembly and an executive that we cannot control and remove peacefully at the ballot box, what is the point having politics at all? You know, this is the problem. Politicians have stopped believing in anything. Well, I think your listeners do believe in things. I think they believe it does matter how our laws are made. It does matter that you get to choose the people who make them. And I think that means that at the next election, when people have seen clearly what Keir Starmer has done, which is make the UK a satellite state, I think they'll reject that very firmly.
I had Matthew Talbot on, the former Labour activist, thrown out the party, so he's got quite a balanced view, but he said that the minute we left the European Union, our GDP went down 4%, and that actually, however much the ideology of is you should stand on your own 2 feet, it was economic suicide. That was his basic theory yesterday. How do you answer that? We know there's been a fudge. We know it hasn't been carried through. And I gave my opinion of how I believed. But we aren't. We're in a terrible position. We've got no growth, no industry, nothing. It's a disaster, isn't it, right now?
Well, let's just step back and ask, what does the data actually show? And I like Matthew, but he and others have fallen into the trap of saying what they'd like to believe is true instead of what's actually in the data. So our trade has actually grown in real terms. Now, it's true our goods exports to the EU have fallen a little, but that might be because of the way they're counted. This often happens across a range of fields, but things like if tropical fruit is imported into the UK and then sent to the EU, under the new arrangements, that's not counted as a UK goods export. These little details matter, and there's loads of rebuttal out there. If you plot UK GDP against, say, France and Germany, you find, since the referendum, index the referendum, you find there is an outlier that's lost GDP, and it's Germany. The truth is, with energy prices going where they are, with COVID hitting us all as hard as we did, it's very difficult to disentangle the various factors. But what is for sure is the people who say we would have had 8% more GDP. They are in fantasy land, fairy tale land. We would have had to, if we'd stayed in the EU, leapfrog the other nations of Europe, even under the same regulatory regime. So what you say is true. We didn't deregulate enough like we should have done, and I regret that. But it is just not true when you look at the data to say that there's been a big hit to trade or GDP. Trade has grown, and our GDP growth is broadly consistent with the European comparable nations. And a lot of nonsense is talked about this, and it is not fair on your listeners to give them this nonsense.
You were Parliamentary Under Secretary of State for exiting the European Union. Do you see Starmer and this government undoing all your work?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm afraid it is a bit back to the deal over which I resigned from the government and overthrew. It's, you know, it's a deal that makes us a satellite state. It's Brexit in name only. It's subordination to EU law. Now, people might be yawning and fed up with hearing all this, but I'm afraid the fundamental question remains, are we going to make our own laws and go for growth in this country, or are we going to subordinate ourselves in a kind of state of pathetic resignation? Well, I know which I prefer. And unfortunately, the EU has over the years been built on a tissue of lies and deception and manipulation of language, and it's happening again. What's being said about the economy is not reflected in the data. The language being used about the reset isn't reflective of the reality that Keir Starmer just wants to subordinate us to their law without a say. It is a disgraceful thing to do. You know, the British people deserve the opportunity to vote and remove those in power, and that is not what Keir Starmer was putting in place. So, yeah, it does undo it. But, I mean, the good news is that I think that people have got the opportunity now to see it being done, and they'll have a general election coming up. And the idea that Kemi or Nigel Farage would be able to support this deal and let it roll on, that is for the birds. The big deal here, really, is that the next review of the Trade and Cooperation Agreement with the EU after the next general election, if there is a government led by Farage or Badenoch, they are bound to reverse all of this. And the big danger then for the EU is we'll end up back at no deal, and it will be because people stupidly tried to subordinate the UK.
Mate, we were talking earlier about the brain drain. You started with Mr. Kyle. I'll finish with Mr. Baker. We miss, I think it would be fair to say we miss your intelligence, pal. You should get back into it. I mean that genuinely.
Well, that's very good of you, and I'm always honoured when people say that. But if people want me to be re-elected, you know, they need to tell me which constituency they live in and that they've got 20,000 friends. I mean, that's the trouble. You do actually have to get re-elected. And, you know, that is the problem. There is not a proportional representation system. If there was, at this point in my career, I might even get re-elected every year just as the Steve Baker party. I don't know, but...
Listen, mate, you know, it's really interesting to get your take. We try and give all sides, but it's really good to have you on, regular on the show. We love him. Steve Baker, former Conservative government minister, talking about Starmer getting closer to Europe, despite the fact that we voted to leave. Many say that's what people want. Do they? I don't know. 0344 499 1000. Busy show this morning. Blex is next.
Some breaking news this morning revealed that under the Terrorist Act, 242 people were arrested in the year to June of this year.
That's something you can indulge in as to all the people who aren't going to prison because, well, there's no prison spaces.
So this is a Talk exclusive we've been looking at.
I said, you take these cuffs off me and speak to me like a human being rather than a common criminal.
You're just left wondering, does these people who lead us actually hate Britain?
Yeah.
Do they not love our country and everything that we've stood for?
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. 9 minutes to 8. We're live across the UK. So much to get into today. We'll talk about 200,000 illegal migrants have come in 8 years and only 7,612 have left. We'll talk about Starmer, that the vultures are circling. What's going to happen to Starmer? He wants to join the EU. We just want our potholes filled. After the news at 8, Kemi Badenoch was, well, she took on a pro... They were all screaming at her, heckled by a pro-Gaza lot yesterday. She dealt very well with that. We'll play you that. So much... But most of all, I'm saying this to you this morning, Thursday is the local elections. Whilst we broadcast on any media, you're not allowed to do it. You have to be straight down the line. And Christian and I just wanted to do it differently this morning. I'm not interested about how you're going to vote. I just want to ask if you are voting. And if you're not voting, why you're not voting, because you shouldn't be moaning about what's not happening. And don't give me that, oh, well, it doesn't make any difference, because if 1,000 people said that, it might. Go and vote. Ringo in Swindon. Isn't that what I ring when I want to park my car? I will be voting on Thursday. I will also be taking a pen because I don't trust the pencils. OK. Blexley, a very good morning, sir. How are you?
Very well, thank you.
We haven't rung to listen to you pontificate. We've rung and put you on because we're concerned. On social media, what happened in your car yesterday? What was going on?
I was being driven around Golders Green by a great friend of mine. I was there to meet the Jewish community and speak to people about their concerns and the such like. And as we were poodling down this road, some lunatic carelessly reversed out of a side road at some pace, wiped us out. Then he drove away from the scene recklessly, jumping red lights, driving on the wrong side of the road. And as we followed within the law as best we could, fortunately, he turned into a dead end. So when he turned round, we had the opportunity to photograph this man and put his face all over social media. If you know who he is, let me know, please.
So you are a victim of crime, because I thought you were that cool. Do you remember Starsky and Hutch? Do you remember when they were driven around and then when they wanted to catch somebody, just leant out the window and put, like, the flashing light on the roof? I thought as an ex-copper, Sweeney Todd style, if somebody did that, Blexley would just lean out the window, the old thing had gone, and you'd bring him in, governor.
Yes, indeed. But, of course, I don't have a warrant card these days. I don't have a blue flashing light or any sirens. In fact, my friend and colleague very wisely did not block the dead end, because if he had, this man was driving like such a lunatic, he would undoubtedly have made a bad situation worse.
But bad, was it political or was it just a dreadful driver in your mind?
I think it was probably an appalling driver. People are contacting me to say they've done checks with the insurance bureau and perhaps it was an uninsured vehicle.
Oh, see, it just follows you around. Now, interestingly, you were in Golders Green, and I'm desperate to speak to you about this. Obviously, those two police officers dealing with the guy who has been charged, and we have to be careful because it's an ongoing case. What I wanted to ask you about was the outrageous Zach Polanski's comments about disproportionate use, and just put it to you as an ex-copper. You've got a madman, or, you know, somebody who's, with respect, is not seen as balanced, running towards you with a knife, having stabbed two Jewish people who were merely going about their business with a rucksack that should or could be even more dangerous, right? How can that be disproportionate? And is Zach Polanski not just being political?
I'm not going to talk about that case in any way, shape or form, But what I will talk about is police use of force. It always has to be reasonable. That's what the Criminal Law Act said, Section 3 of the 1967 Act, the use of reasonable force. And other words have come into play in recent years, like necessary and proportionate. I think people who have a prominent position, like the idiotic Polanski, should quite frankly keep his trap shut, because he knows nothing about policing. I very much doubt he's ever been in a position of danger where he's had to restrain someone. And so, quite frankly, the ludicrous part of it all is he sits on the London Police and Crime Committee. And when you've got people like him spouting off about matters upon which he knows absolutely nothing, it's not helpful.
I don't want to become political either. I just think that you and I both have quite rightly at times criticised all sorts of police officers, the length and breadth of this country. But actually there were two people doing their job, being ostracised, and it's going to ask questions of why would you join the police? Why would you? You're going to, in that split second, you're going to be terrified. The other thing I want to ask you about, Kemi Badenoch overnight, Britain needs zero tolerance on crimes that make our lives misery. Is somebody finally going to talk about shoplifting and antisocial behaviour, please God?
Yeah, those matters that you and I have been talking about for a very, very long time. It's rather bizarre. Politicians seem to be coming round to our way of thinking. We had Starmer talking about the hate crime on these marches, and he actually saying that it looks like things need to be done. We've now got Kemi Badenoch absolutely hitting the nail on the head about shoplifting, vandalism, antisocial behaviour and the such like. The trouble is, talk's cheap, but policing's expensive. I hope that somebody can advise Miss Badenoch, because if she's ever in a position of power, she's going to have people by her side that know how to do policing, how to do it properly, how to regain the streets, how to regain public confidence, and how to lock up bad people. But we need more prison spaces, we need the courts functioning effectively, and we need more properly trained police officers.
And don't we need to change this idealistic madness that says that... I mean, I watched those pictures we're showing now. You regain the streets and people will go, it's not that bad. Well, it damn well is if you can walk into an off-licence and stand there where people just run in, climb over the counter, take what they want, and they're not tackled, they're not dealt with. This comes down to a complete lack of respect, I think, the length and breadth of this country. That comes from not enough policemen and women. As you quite right, there's a system that doesn't punish people. I mean, it drives me nuts, Pete. We seem to make excuses for the perpetrators of crime and don't care enough about the victims. I just think we send out a really weak message.
Of course we do. But the seeds of this weakness were sown back in 1997 with Blair and his political correctness campaign, which had much more sinister undertones to it. And here we are all those years later, unfortunately, reaping the benefits of it with the woke, fluffy liberalism that has polluted and ruined our public services and has led to this disorder on the streets, which, quite frankly, have been surrendered by a police service that sees itself more as a social service than a police force. This is what you get.
Couldn't agree more. Listen, almost 8. Got to go to the news. How's the tour going, dear boy?
Very well, thank you. Wimborne tonight, Ipswich Wednesday, Watford Thursday, Bangor in wonderful Wales on Friday.
Can you lend me 50 quid?
Certainly.
See, he's loaded. He's loaded. He's young. Honestly, we love you. Enjoy, and respect to Mrs B as well. Almost 8 o'clock. We're live across the UK. Former Met Police detective Peter Blexley. Go online. He's got this amazing tour, The Makings of a Murder. It's fantastic. I'm going to go, I promise you. After 8 o'clock, Sarah Pochin, Reform MP for Runcorn and Helsby, giving her take on everything in the news today. And your views on 0344 499 1000. Text to 87222. Though, my friends, the news at 8 is next.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With permission, I'd like to provide the House with information that I now have about the appointment of Peter Mandelson as our ambassador to the United States. But, Mr. Speaker, before I go into the details, I want to be very clear with this House that while this statement will focus on the process surrounding Peter Mandelson's vetting and appointment, at the heart of this, there is also a judgment I made that was wrong.
The name had been submitted to the King as Minister's recommendation. The Prime Minister had made an announcement that Mandelson was his nominee without caveats. The British government had sought agrément, the formal diplomatic process for a host government accepting a nominee from the US government, and that had been obtained before I arrived in post. The position taken from the Cabinet Office was that there was no need to vet Mandelson.
Mr. Speaker, I know many members across the House will find these facts to be incredible. To that, I can only say they are right. It beggars belief that throughout the whole timeline of events, officials in the Foreign Office saw fit to withhold this information from the most senior ministers in our system in government.
This was not due process. Everyone knows the price of misleading the House. Will the Prime Minister finally take responsibility and go?
Mr. Speaker, let's be absolutely clear. Before Mandelson took up his post, UKSB recommended with red flags that clearance should be denied, and there was high concern that was not brought to my attention or the attention of the Foreign Secretary at the time or subsequently is a very serious error of judgment. She rushed to judgment as she always did, just like the Iran war. Mr. Speaker, I was elected by the British people because they let the country down for 14 long years. Whatever she says, whatever noise they make, nothing is going to distract me from delivering for our country.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back or welcome along. It's Talk Breakfast. It's Tuesday, the 5th of May, and we're live across the UK on the home of common sense and the home of alarm clock Brits. Good morning to you, my dear friends out there working and grafting whilst others are doing absolutely jack. Mark's here today. I mean, he was here yesterday. Double pay for bank holiday. 0344 499 1000. Text to 87222. You're waking up to lots of news. Front of the Sun, 200,000 illegal migrants, a record toll. And a number that are bigger than the total of people who live in York have arrived in this country in the last 8 years. Only 7,612 have been deported. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about Starmer. Apparently this open letter from MPs talking about him resigning or setting a date after the elections on Thursday is imminent. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about Kemi Badenoch, who got confronted yesterday by a pro-Gaza crowd in Essex and dealt with it quite well. My big thing, I make no apology for this when we're broadcasting. I've said it many times. It's not about how you vote. That's your business. I just want to know from people, you know, there's people that go, I'm not voting, can't be bothered, I can't be bothered. Why not? Don't moan then. Make a difference. Vote. Don't tell me it doesn't matter. It does matter. Dan in Suffolk. Morning, Jez. I will be voting on Thursday and I urge everyone who hears this to do the same. It's never been more important. That's the point. Whatever your political persuasion, get out there. People are also texting and saying we're not allowed to vote in our area because the Labour government have taken that opportunity away. Reform actually have allowed 4.7 million people to actually have the vote. So use it. Other people are saying, this is really interesting, there isn't a political party that I want. I had a great text from somebody who said, until there's a box that says I hate them all that I can tick, then I'm not turning up. But I do think there's an important point here. It really is important that you show how you stand and how you feel on Thursday. Lots of you are angry as well about Starmer and his EU sellout. Morning, Diane.
Morning, Jeremy. I'm likening this deal with the EU to the Chagos Islands. The UK is now the Chagos Islands and the EU is now Mauritius. What do you think?
Quite possibly I'll have to learn Mauritian. 8:05, we'll say a very good morning to the MP for Run, Corner Helsby, Sarah Poaching. Good morning.
Good morning, Jeremy. Lovely to be here.
Good. You will understand, from my point of view, and I said this to Ian Duncan-Smith an hour ago, when you're broadcasting, we are not willing. We have to be straight down the line when it comes to elections. My point, right, I don't care how people vote on Thursday. I said it to Ian, I'm going to say it to you from Reform. Isn't it important when people fought to get the vote that people exercise their democratic right?
100%, and I am living proof that every single vote counts and matters. I won my by-election by 6 votes. So, you know, those 6 people made a huge difference to the constituency of Runcorn and Helsby. So I always say on the doorstep, when I'm confronted with you're all the same, what's the point of voting? Well, no, vote for change and you get change, because as I say, I am an absolute walking example of every single vote counts.
Now, I thought quite poignantly, over your right shoulder, I can see a thing saying, "We love sailing." Front page of The Sun today, 200, this is appalling, 200,000 illegal migrants have entered this country in the last 8 years. Starmer's 1 in, 1 out. Only 7,612 have been deported. Your party's talked incessantly about immigration, and I have also talked incessantly about it and said that I think it is fast becoming, if not already, a national disgrace, that people are fed up hearing politicians with platitudes saying they'll do this and they'll do that. We need the will, I think, of politicians, a politician of will, who will face massive criticism, but something needs to be done, because the British people genuinely are up to the back teeth with this. They really are, Sarah.
Well, if there's one person that has the absolute ability to do this, it's Zia Youssef. You heard him yesterday with his policy on, if you voted Green, great, you can have a deportation
You're going to be really surprised by this. You're going to have to argue this with me, because I've got an issue with that. Explain to me what happened. Now, I understand, right, genuinely, that's what you wish for. But what about if I'm stuck in a Green constituency and I'm a Conservative or a Reform member or even Labour? Am I not then being, hear me out, persecuted because that constituency? Is it not more important, from what Zia Youssef said, to say we are all... One of my big bugbears is the housing thing. You'll hear politicians going, build more houses, but not in my constituency, bugger that. No, everywhere else. Is it not time for the British people to be told and take responsibility? If we're going to deal with this, right, and not have HMOs and hotels where we don't know, we're going to have to build detention centres all over this country, not just in Green constituencies. I mean this positively, and we're all going to have to suck this up if we're going to deal with this issue. That would be my opinion.
There's several things going on here. The first, of course, is to say, that what Zia's point is simply this, that in any constituency where there is a Reform Member of Parliament or a Reform-controlled council, our guarantee to the electorate is that you will not get a detention centre. We live in a democracy. In some areas, then, of course, the Green vote or the Labour vote will be the majority. That is about a democracy, and that's how we run the country at the moment. But the point is that Reform will absolutely do something about these 200,000 migrants that have come in over the last 8 years. We are the only party that are saying that we will detain and deport. There will be zero tolerance on anyone that...
What do you say to the cynics? And there are plenty out there who will say, good, yeah, absolutely, get the consistency from Reform and from Farage about that. But will is one thing. What about, I was talking to Zia about this, what about the legal ramifications? Are you as a party convinced that you can take on the legal system, that you can take on the judiciary, that you can take on what seems to seep into almost everything nowadays, which is ideology, Sarah?
Yeah, so for example, obviously we've got local elections coming up, and I know we can't get into the details too much on that, but we have in Lancashire County Council, a council that now is saying that it will vote on absenting itself, if you like, from the government resettlement scheme. Reform councils will prioritise homeless soldiers living on our streets, will prioritise local people on housing lists. We will not be dictated to by this government and told that new houses, which you've just talked about, have to be set aside for illegal asylum seekers that should not be here at all. Now, that is a massive step and policy change for reform councils to change, but we have to be brave. And it is about the will of the government, whether it is a local level or a national level. And yes, we know we will be challenged by this whole industry of human rights lawyers, which I despair on. But of course, we will remove ourselves from the ECHR, and that will mean that the door is open then for us to run this country in the secure way that it should be run.
It's interesting for me doing this because I said earlier to Ian, actually, and I'll say to you, I've done this long enough to know that people will moan and bitch about things that they don't like. But there is, I think, a moment that's been reached in this country, which we've always been, haven't we, Sarah, fair. We've always been the moral leaders. We've always done the right thing. But I think a silent majority in this country, even if it's not popular, and even if all of that silent majority don't speak about it, who have gone, well, we've done everything correctly and we're actually not being treated any way fairly anymore. We're actually being treated worse than the people who are being brought in here, either wrongly or because they see that they can get better things. And I do think the British people's patience, I do think that, you know, traditional stiff upper lip, keep calm, carry on. I think people are going, why should I carry on? There's very little point in me carrying on doing everything correct because everybody else seemingly is doing better than I am.
But also, you know, Jeremy, that my area of sort of speciality is the justice brief. And I was listening to that conversation you've just had with Peter. The British people are so fed up now that, you know, why would I go into a supermarket and pay my bill anymore? Yeah. Because you can go in and shoplift. Now, the fact is the court...
How did that ever become... See, I'm old-fashioned. How on earth would I explain to my old man if he was here? Oh, by the way, Dad, now, you know you used to go to the supermarket, you and Mum, and buy your shopping. It's all right now. You could just go down there. And if you nick less than 200 quid, nobody's going to do anything about it. He would literally look at me in the face and go, was society broken down then or what?
Listen to this, Jeremy. Part of the problem is, of course, is that there's not enough police on the streets. There's not enough places in the prisons. The prisons are full. But we've heard that the prison population now, in terms of foreign national offenders, is higher than it's ever been. It's 12% of our prison population, foreign national offenders. It costs us £630 million a year to keep over 10,000 foreign national offenders in our prisons. We need to get into power. If I was Justice Secretary, would deport those out of our prisons. That immediately frees up prison spaces to put these shoplifters in. And not only that, Jeremy, that money, £630 million, could be used to put 16,500 more police officers on the streets to stop this disgrace that is suddenly seems to be becoming a norm on our streets.
So there is a policy. You would use that money. You would use that to pull, because we were talking to Peter Blexley. He was the victim of a crime yesterday. Somebody told me, was it some weeks ago? I can't remember what I had for breakfast. I haven't had any breakfast yet. Somebody told me some weeks ago that actually, if you nick less than £200, you know, that's okay, right? You'll get... I don't recognise what we've become. Somebody then told me that the police force can't be called a police force because that might give out the wrong impression that they might use force. When we were kids, if you thought a copper was going to drag you by your ear home to your mum, my God, that was the end of your life. But I suppose you couldn't grab anybody by the ear anymore because that would be disrespectful and they'd have anxiety for 6 months and their ear might fall off. And you think I'm joking? That's what we've got to, right? It is.
Yeah, 100%. And look, you know, this government will say, well, we can't process all of these people.
They don't want to.
They don't. Listen to this, because of court delays, they say, oh, we can't process them even if we arrest them. Do you know that we are currently spending £38 million on translation services in courts? Translation services that I know from my experience as 20 years as a magistrate causes such delays in court, or you can't get this Urdu translator, or you can't get this particular translator. It's got to go. I'll tell you what, Jeremy, if I was Justice Secretary, in English courts, you speak English, and that's it.
It's a very interesting time politically, isn't it? I was saying to Ian Duncan-Smith earlier, from a Tory point of view, you know, Badenoch was out yesterday. She was heckled by a pro-Gaza crowd and actually stood up to them. People are getting abused the whole time for seemingly talking stuff that in my life would be seen as common sense. And just a final comment from you today about that fractured approach that we have. We read, and again, we can't be specific, but we read that the uniparty view that's been around for so many years will be destroyed starting on Thursday. Do you think that because politics is seemingly so fractured that this country is fractured, or do you believe certainly your party, in your mind, can mend those fissures and those fractures? Because when you make massive, great change, or when you have to come in with an iron fist and give medicine like Thatcher, people should remember Thatcher was almost voted out in the first 3 years. She was the most vilified, hated person that had ever walked the earth. Even those who I would think at the end of her reign didn't like her now freely admit she had a pair bigger than any politician's ever had since, and that actually had a plan and tried to see it through.
You have to have politicians running this country that are fearless and that are putting the British people first. People like Zia, people like myself, we are absolutely determined to get this country back. And I'll tell you something, there's been far too many, what we've seen recent polls saying, far too many Muslim voters now are voting for pro-Gaza candidates. Now, look, the point is, are you British or not? You're living in this country. You're enjoying the benefits of living in this country. You're claiming that you're a British citizen. Well, you vote for those politicians that put British people first and put this country first.
Are these British Muslim voters, I have this, ranking Gaza as more important than the economy?
Yes, well, that to me is not about being British. That is about voting in politicians that are pro-Gaza, that have a different agenda to politicians like myself who want to regain this country.
It's really interesting. Ian Duncan-Smith an hour ago in the exact chair you were in said, and I never thought I'd hear him say that, you know, on the doorsteps, people want to talk genuinely, he was saying this, about the bloody pothole situation and how they can't see a doctor or a dentist. And I think we need to bring politics back to that, which is why Thursday will be so interesting. Listen, as ever, we appreciate it. We really do. Thank you so much indeed. Sarah Pochin, Reform UK's MP for Runcorn and Helsby, making a really good point. She won a seat, 2 years ago by 6 votes. Christian and I are on a mission today. I'm not bothered how you're going to vote on Thursday. That's your right. But vote, for God's sake. Don't not vote. Make it count. By the way, Sarah mentioned Lancashire County Council. We just want to let you know that other parties standing in that council election are Labour Party, Green Party, Conservatives, the Liberal Democrats, the Workers' Party and Independents. You can check out your local candidates list. It's very difficult when you're doing a show as you approach election because you have to be as balanced and as fair as possible, which is why we've had Sir Ian Duncan-Smith on this morning. Sir Ian Duncan-Smith talking about potholes and saying this country's on its backside, which is why we've just had Sarah Pochin, the First Lady of Reform, and which is why at 9 o'clock this morning we'll have Carl Turner, now an independent but former Labour. It's about balance, it's about opinion. Morning, Wayne.
Good morning, Jezza. So the British people have a fantastically rich history of fairness and revolt. So ask a parliamentarian, why do we have parliament? Why are we not still ruled by kings and lords? Because the kings and lords took the mick. They pushed the public so far. The public revolted. Parliamentarians need to sit there and look at history and think, why am I here? What is my role? Because at the moment, they are very close to having that role taken away from them, because the British public will only stand for so long holding their nose before they do something.
Mr. Speaker, I know many members across the House will find these facts to be incredible. To that, I can only say they are right. It beggars belief that throughout the whole timeline of events, officials in the Foreign Office saw fit to withhold this information from the most senior ministers in our system in government.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 8:22. We're live across the United Kingdom. So much to come this hour, including Angela Levin, royal biographer. Meghan Markle is apparently facing fresh marriage turmoil. Yesterday, I said I'm absolutely convinced that she and Harry will split. I'll tell you what I'm going to do today. I'm going to set a date. I'm convinced. The ginger boy has woken up to the reality that... never mind, I'm not going there. Me and Angela before 9, 0344 499 1000. I will vote for the party that will carry out mass deportations. I don't want to know how you're going to vote, Tim. Just vote. I'm not bothered, right? I'm not bothered. Chris in Chichester. I wasn't going to get the chance to vote until Reform gave me the opportunity to vote, so I'm voting on Thursday. My point is this, and so is it Christians. Vote how you want to vote on Thursday, but for God's sake, use a democratic right that your forefathers and foremothers voted for. Don't give me the, I'm not voting, it's not worth it. I just want to say a very good morning to the Deputy Political Editor of The Sun, but before I did that, I have to say a very good morning to Oliver William Robin Carl, who will not get out of his car. He will not move an inch until his dad says good morning to him. I hope you have a good day at school, mate. He got a magic kit yesterday. How good is he at magic? Abracadabra. Rissy, see you later. Lots of love. Right, let's say good morning to Ryan Saby, Deputy Political Editor from The Sun. Morning, Ryan.
Good morning, Jeremy.
I want to talk about something that happened before we talk about the front page of The Sun with Kemi Badenoch yesterday, or Badenoch. She was heckled by a pro-Gaza group in Essex, and to be fair, her response was pretty impressive. Have a watch, have a listen, peeps.
Right, fantastic.
The rise of attacks from the Muslim people, though.
Fantastic.
Are they not worth protecting?
Thank you. The people who've died and who've been killed were Jewish people in synagogues. Let's stop pretending that something else is happening.
But this isn't about...
No, it is. It very much is. It very much is. It very much is about Jewish people. And you can say all that you like, but this is how the 1930s started, with people pretending not to see what was happening in front of them. I am not blind. I can see. No. I'm telling people the truth, and they will always know that I stand behind Jewish people and I stand for them. I'm sorry, but I disagree with you. You just have to accept that. Yes, that's too bad. That's too bad. People know where I stand, and I'm not going to be intimidated. I'm not going. No. I am the right. I am the right. Yes, and I'm very proud of being on the right. I'm not pandering to the far right. What I am doing is supporting. No. What I'm doing is supporting Jewish people from the sort of ignorance people like you put out there, and I will never be intimidated by it.
Yeah. Good to see, Ryan Saby. That's what we want more of, isn't it?
Yeah, we often see, politicians walking down the street and being sort of heckled by whether it's protesters or sometimes reporters, and sometimes they just often ignore what the person is saying to them. But this, we've seen the Conservative Party leader attack it head on, and if she's confronted with criticism or a different point of view, she is willing to take it front on and explain, and also just explain her position. And there she was, also in that clip, she talks about how she's been to schools, how she's been to Jewish businesses where they've had, security protecting people in communities where people need protection. And I think it just speaks to, the wider argument of what's been happening, of what we saw last week and what we've seen for many months and years before that.
I believe that there are certain issues in this country that what I would call the professional agitators jump upon. We've had Just Stop Oil. We've had, I have to be careful, there's a local election, but Polanski, to me, in the Green Party, has hoovered up every communist, Marxist, left-wing weirdo that voted for Jeremy Corbyn. And, somebody said to me this morning, which I thought was really a salient point, have you heard the Green Party talk about environmental issues? No, they're talking about Gaza. They've obviously worked out that that's the thing. Anti-Semitism is rife. Kemi Badenoch fronting it on. And to me, I looked at that and I thought, that's refreshing. That's a politician. Because so many people, I think, would imagine, Ryan, that politicians don't say anything anymore unless a focus group says that they should, or a SPAD says they should or they shouldn't. And actually, you could see her keeping to the point but getting a little bit angry, and I thought that was quite refreshing, to be fair.
Yeah, in the amount of visits I've been on with politicians and done interviews, and they're very sort of closed off areas where they don't really integrate or actually speak to the public per se. But we have Kemi Badenoch, who's not shying away from it, and she's taking the fight to the Greens. I think Kemi Badenoch also knows that she has to show some fire. She has got a big fight on her hands come the end of the week. And, Labour will be a big story, also with Reform and Greens doing well. But the Conservatives not doing very well will also be a big story.
I believe about Kemi Badenoch, who I've met and I've interviewed, right person at the wrong time. I think she's a good politician. I think the Tory party will not be forgiven for quite a while for the 14 years and how it ended. But I think there's enough about this woman, genuinely politically, but I just think, sadly for her, it's probably the wrong time. Front page of The Sun today, brilliant article. Just one more small boat and the arrivals will hit 200,000. We put that into context. The Sun, 200,000 people is the equivalent of the population of York, despite our Prime Minister saying 1 in, 1 out. Only 7,612 have been deported on the back of that. Would it be fair to say that the Sun newspaper understands, as we do here at Talk, that whatever the political fallout, whatever people's response, this is, for all sorts of reasons, the number one thing? Yes, people look at potholes and their roads, but because this issue is impacting on everything, it's what most people will talk about on the doorsteps, isn't it?
Yeah, this is up at the higher echelons of political debate, whether it's a local level, whether it's the high end Westminster. And I think that there have been big numbers over recent years when it comes to legal migration. Those numbers are now coming down. But I think it's just the imagery of illegal migration, people coming over small boats, and the kind of concept that why can't this be stopped? Why can't Britain come up with some kind of sort of enhanced deal with France to stop people even coming over in the first place? It doesn't seem to be. Why is it impossible that this is carrying on year after year after year?
Absolutely right. Absolutely.
Go back to 2018 when this started. Rishi Sunak, he paid that deal 3 years ago, £500 million. We've just started a new deal that kicks in a couple of months' time. Another £500 million. We're going to be giving the French £160 million if they get the right results. It's on a sort of pay as you succeed type deal. We just seem to be handing over so much money.
Can I go back to what you just said? Yeah, I'm so with you, mate. That is genius. That is the shortest sentence. How is it impossible for the United Kingdom to not be able to deal with this bloody problem? No wonder I've heard every politician, leave the ECJ, the laws. I'm looking for somebody to say, this isn't fair on the British people, and I will not rest and I will not leave any stone unturned until I work out how I'm going to do this. And there will, Ryan, be people along the way who don't like it, who get upset. That pro-Gaza heckler for Kemi Badenoch, and you're not going to win with people like that. My wife's got a great phrase. She said, the lovers will love and the haters will hate, and you've got to get on with your life. It's true.
Yeah, and I think in this case that you can apply that to this, and I think people are seeing, people, whether it's illegal, migration, detention centres, in their area potentially being built. We saw that reform policy over the weekend. I think it's just people are just seeing the fabric of their communities change, and I think that is something that obviously reform are tapping into, and it looks like they are going to reap the benefits of that come the end of the week.
I mean, my opinion on that, and I was very open with Sarah about that, is I'd feel if I was in a constituency that had voted for a Green MP and I was a diehard Conservative Labour supporter or reformer, I'd be hacked off. But for me, there's a bigger issue, Ryan, which is we should be saying to the whole of this country, whenever we have that, I said it earlier, we had the whole debate about houses. People go, yeah, but not in my constituency. I think we've all got to accept that if HMOs and hotels are going to be debunked, then we're going to have to build detention centres. It might be in the centre of towns or on outsides of towns in all sorts of constituencies that are controlled and regulated and aren't 4-star, and that will send a message. If we as a society want this problem to be improved, then we're going to have to sort of join up and do that. But whether there's the will or not, I've no idea. In terms of the Sun as well, I'm quite interested. We threw something out this morning which was, I'm not interested in broadcasting, I have to be careful. Do you pick up from your readers an apathy to vote on Thursday, or do you feel that they understand it's important that they tick that box, whatever their political persuasion?
Yeah, I think probably more so than ever they feel that it's important. But I think overall, a turnout in local elections is always particularly low, maybe 30, 35, 40% or so. But I think it's issues that are affecting them locally, whether it's bins, whether it's potholes, but also they see, the bigger picture, whether it's the cost of living, whether it's, immigration, whether it's the health service. So I think some of those bigger issues sometimes just feed into that. So I think, and also it's a free hit when it comes to the government. They'll see it as a free hit, as they're not going to get elected out, but the voters will see it as a free hit. It's not a general election, and they can send a message to the government of the day to tell them exactly what they really think nearly 2 years on into coming to power.
Wise man, great to have you on. Great piece today in the Sun front page about the migrant situation. Ryan Slavey, Deputy Political Officer or even Editor. Thank you very much indeed. 28 minutes to 9 o'clock. Let's cross to Westminster, braving the elements. Shadow Business Secretary. We have a mutual friend. Let's not talk about it on air. Andrew Griffiths, good morning. Oh, he's inside. He's inside. What's happened to you, man? Where's your hard-hatted ability to stand outside in the rain? What's going on?
I think that's reserved just for the rainy days that I come on talkTV. So no, today I'm at home in West Sussex.
Good man. Andrew, welcome. Interesting. Or you might get into trouble. You've got a Union Jack there, my friend. Don't get into trouble. Police might come round. I rather admired your leader yesterday, tackling that pro-Gaza crowd in Essex and giving it back, but giving it back in a very controlled way and saying, don't think you're going to intimidate me with your ideology. I'm going to give you some facts. We probably need more of that, don't we, Andrew Griffiths?
We so do. Isn't it just time for the sort of honesty that Kemi's got, that the new reformed Conservative Party has got, whether it's about the economy, whether it's about tough things that we're calling the government out. Everyone's in favour of employment rights these days, but and of course we're not against them. But the idea you just pile pages and pages and pages onto small businesses, closing down pubs, damaging our high street, that is a hard truth that we're willing to talk about. And so we just need a fundamental change in approach. And the great thing about Kemi, many of us have seen this for years, is you know where you stand. You don't always agree. That's politics, that's democracy. But with Kemi Badenoch, you know where you stand. She can hold a principled argument, which, long overdue, frankly.
I've had lots of people on this morning. You'll have seen the front page of The Sun, as everybody else says. 200,000 is the record toll of illegal migrants, and we've talked incessantly on this station with you and with other people about, we've got to leave the ECHR, we've got to stop these people, we've got to do this. Do you, like me, believe we've reached almost the point of no return? Not in terms of politicians, who I'm sure whose platitudes are great, but the British public, they really want answers now, Andrew.
They really want answers. They really deserve answers. And more than that, we all want action on this. It is, of course, indefensible. And I'm not here to mount a defence of things that happened in the past. But this government in particular had a great opportunity. When we tried to introduce things that people thought were radical at the time, the Rwanda deal, the return scheme that would have dealt with the issue, everybody opposed it. Everybody ganged up, opposed it. The lords, the bishops, the BBC, the judges, everybody tried to frustrate that. Now, the difference is that we will support this government. We've said this from day one. We will support anything the government seeks to do, and yet they still have not taken action. So it's completely unacceptable. It's corrosive to democracy. And let's be clear. If the French, if those boats, instead of migrants coming to the UK, if those boats were smuggling French art treasures, the Mona Lisa, across the channel, do you think for 1 second that the French police, the French gendarmes, would not apprehend those people leaving?
No. I agree with that, but I would. This isn't a criticism. This is a general view. You talked about Rwanda. I find it astonishing, Andrew, if I'm being completely honest, that no government or no politician can say we are the United Kingdom. We don't need to pay the French 500 million. We don't need to send people to another country. We need to get our cojones and our brains in gear, and we need to train a crack border force, and we need to get the Navy involved, and we need to stand up for what we know is right. I understand what you said about Rwanda, and I was a critic. The criticism of the Tories is that they did not do it quick enough. I think that's a perfectly justifiable criticism right now. But even the Labour Party, you're quite right, who criticised it within 6 months, was saying, oh, actually, maybe that's not such a bad idea. I have another view. I find it astonishing that politicians and political parties do not have the brain power to say, we're just going to... I mean, I watch other countries. They don't give a damn about the ECHL. They're not in trouble. We seem to pander to almost everybody. That's my frustration from a personal point of view. And I realise, I think that the public have just got to the point now, pal, where because the sorts of things that they expect to get are being withheld because of the numbers of people coming to this country, I think it infuriates them. And I do. Of course, you're right. Locally, people are interested in, you know, potholes, etc., etc. But I also believe they're concerned about a country that can't control its borders, has only got 5 frigates, allows people to go into shops and shoplift and just everybody stands around, and it's all a bit pathetic, nimby-pimby and a bit... Nimby-pimby. It's just a bit... We've become woolly, haven't we?
If we want to fix those things, and we do, and they need to be fixed, you do need a team with a thought-out plan.
Yeah.
And many of the things I think that, you know, people would criticise the 2019 government, the previous government, although most of the challenges with our society, I think, are pretty deep-seated and go back decades, and no politician has been particularly honest about those of any party. But if you want to fix it, we can't just rage against the machine. We need to build a better machine.
Yeah.
We need to have a clear set of plans and a set of people who are going to work as a team. It's not about one person. It's not a messiah syndrome. It's having a proper, credible team. Now, I came from business because I thought that's exactly what we need in this country. You know, a government that, you know, it's not run like a business, but with proper business-like people who are willing to just knuckle down to the hard challenges. But you do have to work as a team. Otherwise, you know, it's just rhetoric. So that is my one caveat. I think with the Conservatives' borders plan now, when we get a majority, we will absolutely be able to crack that through. The government should do it tomorrow. And if they bring forward the necessary tough measures, not in hock to the lefty backbenchers, but if they brought forward the necessary measures, we would support them in a way that they did not support us in the scale of that crisis.
Andrew Griffiths, great to have you on. Shadow Business Secretary, putting the Tory point of view. We've heard it all this morning. Sarah Pochin from Reform. Andrew Griffiths from the Tory party. Sir Ian Duncan-Smith, who should have been Prime Minister, in my opinion, after 9. Carl Turner, thrown out of the Labour Party, on the way next. A man who thinks we should rejoin the EU or have closer links. That'll be fun. Morning, James.
Morning, Jez. James from Kent. Just listening to, obviously, it's going on with Reform and the announcement that if you live in a constituency that votes for Green or Labour or whatever, they're going to fill it with all of the illegals coming in. So I could live in one of them constituencies. I vote Reform, and so I will be punished. My house price will be diminished. I will have my life turned upside down because of people that voted a different way from me. And I'm supposed to vote reform. I'll be honest with you, up until this point, I was willing to give reform the benefit of the doubt, but now I'm thinking maybe not.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
80 minutes to 9, we're live across the UK. Angela Levin to come, and after 9, Carl Turner, all head of Julia Hartley-Brewer, back from 10 o'clock this morning on Talk. I think Kemi Badenoch is one of the most honest politicians for a very long time, says Sharon from Staffordshire. Christine James, morning, Jez. I'm absolutely going to vote on Thursday. As with your previous caller, we had our election taken away from us. Now we have it back. I'm definitely voting and trying to get others to do the same. What are your opinions on compulsory voting, says Christine on the Isle of Wight. Oh, I'll have to think about that. Interesting. But, you know, don't moan is my thing, but maybe, yeah. Nick in South Gloucester, have a thought for those of us who won't be casting a vote on Thursday because no elections are being held. 0344 419 1000. Let's say a very good morning to the political editor of the New World, James Ball. How are you, my friend?
Good morning. I'm very well, thank you.
Good. We haven't got long, but the Starmer cozying up to the EU, you're all for this, aren't you?
I think to an extent we have to do it. I mean, you can't really change our geography. We're right next to the EU. They're got to be who we trade.
We're an island, man.
Yeah, but look how far away we are from countries that are in the EU and how far away we are from countries outside it. Like, geography matters. They've got to be a major trading partner.
Does geography matter more than democracy? Because we voted to leave the EU, didn't we?
Look, I think we would need a full vote or a referendum or an election manifesto to go back in. I think to align on stuff like trading rules, since we don't have nuclear reactors, we're going to have to buy electricity as a result. We need some rules on that. We want to sell, we want to be able to sell beef. We want to be able to sell lamb. We're going to have some rules on that.
Why can't we sell it to other people? Why do we have to be within an organisation that tells us, hear me out a second, what we can sell and at what price? Why are we not able to, or why do we not want to become competitive in our own right outside of that block?
Well, because all of our neighbours are in a club and we're not in it anymore.
Why do we want to be in a club?
Well, this isn't about being in a club. This is about trading with a club. But we can't pick off and do a separate deal with Ireland or with France or with Norway. We have to deal with them collectively, which means they've got more bargaining power because
okay. So if they've got more bargaining power, where's this £1 billion coming from? Because I don't know what you think, but I would suspect that a majority of people in this country right now, James, will be saying, I want that billion to be spent on potholes or me to be able to see a doctor or all the things that matter to people ahead of those local elections, obviously, on Thursday. £1 billion quid, where's he getting it from?
Is this the £1 billion to pay for the Ukraine loan scheme? Because my understanding is that that lets us get into bid to sell some arms and sell some stuff that the EU's only allowing the money to go for people who participate. So I think we're doing this to try and, speculate to accumulate, and in the hope that we get some arms contracts, which are very skilled jobs,
Why don't
very
we
important
speculate
British industry.
But what about speculating to accumulate with billions of pounds in tax cuts to help the economy grow and us make businesses that work here, rather than spending it trying to cosy up to a group that might be a group? Would you describe it? All our friends are in a thing. I'm a loner. But the reason, listen, the beauty of opinion is it's different. I voted to leave all those years ago, pal, because I wanted us to stand on our own 2 feet, make successful industry and business and sell it. That's the absolute truth. It hasn't turned out the way. I completely accept that. But why do we... Why don't we look at different priorities? I don't understand it. I never have.
But this isn't rejoining. This is working with the EU to help loan money to Ukraine to help them stay an independent democracy that isn't an EU member. We want independent democracies in Europe. We want to stop Russian aggression. And this gets us access to military contracts, to arms deals that we wouldn't otherwise have. I think that's hopefully a good way to spend £1 billion. I think a lot of your listeners will think, £1 billion, if we get something back and it specifically helps Ukraine. There are worse ways we spend money all the time, aren't there?
That's true. Very quickly, what do you say, those of you on that side of the argument about closer ties, not rejoining but closer ties, to the people who get very affronted and say, we voted to leave that Starmer's. He's always had this ideology, and frankly, in 3 years, whether it's a Tory party, the Reform Party, a coalition of the right or whatever, I don't know. This is going to be thrown out in a heartbeat. What's your response to that, pal?
I think, look, we can leave the EU. We can never leave Europe. They're going to be our neighbours. We're going to have to trade with them. And that's going to mean we are constantly going to be dealing with the EU, whether we're in there or not. And this is just trying to make sure that we get a better deal for British exporters and for British businesses. And so we are going to be dealing with the EU for as long as you or I are alive. And,
well, I'm not going to be... Listen, I quite like you. I'm not going to be alive as long as you, pal, but it's great to have you on all the very, very short. We'll get you back on soon. James Ball, political editor of The New World. Good to get all views. 0344 499 1000. This lady, where has she been? I felt like my show just hasn't worked. Angela Levin, royal biographer, good morning.
Good morning. That's very nice to hear that. I haven't been well, so I couldn't come.
Are you all right now?
Yeah.
I'd have sent presents, teddy bears, flowers and chocolates. I had no idea, Angela.
I just needed quiet.
Oh, did you?
No, I had... I won't tell you now, but it was very nasty, and now I'm getting better.
Did you miss me?
Of course.
Lovely.
I thought for the first time, and I thought, I'm not going to do it with him. My goodness, that's going to be sad. But I couldn't.
I know you're a massive Meghan Markle fan. So we're going to have a little game today, because I was talking to Mr. Cole yesterday, and he was saying that she was very upset about not being invited to the Met Gala. She's also said to be facing fresh marriage turmoil scrutiny. As insiders told Radar Online, her growing focus on money has caused huge friction with Prince Harry. I think he's going to leave her, and I'm going to give you a date before we finish speaking.
Go on.
No, tell me what you think before I give you the date.
I think he's got a very difficult chance to getting away because of the children, whether they're their own or whether they're not. It's very hard for him to do that. And secondly, he doesn't want to let his family know that they were right and he was wrong. He's determined not to let that go through. So we'll have to wait.
But I do agree with these sources that say that her obsession with cash, that's a surprise, I love this, is leaving him shaking with discontent. You're a lady, and I wouldn't respect you, actually, and I mean that. I love the bones of you. But I do believe that the reason he got with her in the first place was because she absolutely played him and used, let's put this politely to Angela Levin, used her womanly wiles to bring him into the fold. Would that be a good description?
Yes, I mean, let's just say it straight. She knew him after 2 days before she invited him to come to Africa and lie beneath the sky. And she wanted to have lots of sex with him. and
she?
he's a guy, come on, he's a guy who likes women who have sex, and so that's what they went, under the sky.
Sorry, Angela Levin, I don't want you to be taken ill again. Are you telling me that she basically seduced him and he's whipped, and that she took him to Africa and seduced him under the stars?
Yes.
Wow. What about bugs in your pants? That's not good, is it?
Well, it was very obvious. She'd wanted to get a rich man. She thought he was worth far more than he has been. Millions didn't count. His huge amount of money.
Do you think that she literally was that cynical that she used her, basically bedded him to become the Duchess of Sussex, and then the reality was, and this is what... See, here's the bit I don't understand, and I can talk to you because it's like talking to my mum. You're not my mum, but you know what I mean,
No,
right?
what?
No, you know what I mean. So if she was that cynical, right, and used herself, right, wouldn't she have loved all the trappings of being a princess or a duchess or whatever? Why did she, or why was she then the force behind him walking away from something that you can see means bloody everything to her?
No, but you see, she was 6 in line. She couldn't bear it that she had to walk behind Catherine. She couldn't bear it. If you watched earlier on, when they were indoors and they had to walk, she would often go ahead and they would pull her back. She didn't feel it was right. And one day, Harry went to his mother and he said, you ought to have Catherine, you ought to have Meghan taking over, because she's the one who worked up herself. Catherine has not worked properly. She hasn't got the experience. So it should be Meghan. And this is obviously what Meghan wanted and told him to go and get it.
Do you think that she literally, do you think he sort of, the ginger one did what he was told in return for lots of sex under the stars? I'm joking.
Well, I don't
using
know
your
if
analogy.
lots of sex, but he did it. But he did what he was told,
Yeah.
because he loved her. He was desperately in love with her. When I saw him at the palace, he was desperately in love with her.
Or not awe, I suppose. I mean, just infatuated would be a better word,
Yes,
right?
he
Infatuated.
thinks, and still does, that she's incredibly clever.
Is she?
Of course she's not. He thinks so. He thinks she's incredibly clever, and he can't understand why everybody else doesn't.
Well, because they see through her.
This is the most extraordinary thing to say, that he thinks she's so amazing and wonderful, and most people don't agree.
It's really interesting what you said as well, though, and I do take this, right? I do think he'll leave her. I get your point about kids. My old man, you knew my old man worked for the Queen Mother. He said to me, within 5 years, how long have they been married?
6 or 7.
No, he said 10 years. That's right. He said within 5 to 10 years. That's what he said. He said he'll be back in England with his ginger tail between his legs, and she'll be in California, probably with an A-list Hollywood star and 2 children from the British royal family. And I've always thought she's very manipulative. I've always thought... I mean, we had this thing overnight. Apparently she's lost the plot because she wasn't invited to the Met Gala. Did you see that?
Yes.
Brilliant.
Yes. Well, nobody likes her. No one. People see the real Meghan. They see the phoniness. They see her greediness. And so...
I mean, if Anna Wintour, but more importantly, the Kardashians fall out with you, you can't have too much of a standing. I'm not trying to be disrespectful to the Kardashians and make millions, but if you are spurned by the Kardashians because they consider you below them, it's not looking great, is it?
Well, it was not necessarily that because they'd be below them, but they were very rude.
Yeah.
They went to a party and she didn't like the photography, and she didn't like the photos that had been taken. You know, she's so important to herself.
Yeah.
Just leaves things alone. But they were quite friendly. But you have to do it their way. It's their party. You run the party how they want it. But she doesn't want to do that. She always has to be there.
Centre of attention.
Be in the middle. She has to be always the most important place. Now, this man, I've forgotten his name.
Harry.
But he was... no, but He lent them to have his house and to
Tyler
have
Perry.
Yeah, that's right. And they didn't give back any of the money that they borrowed from him. So, you know, he was her closest friend.
Yep.
Are you going to do that again? Certainly not.
2 questions to finish. I'm so glad I was sent a present. I'm going to say it's 2026. He will be back in England within 2 years, by the end of 2028, divorced, with his tail between his legs, as the late Patrick Kyle said. What do you reckon?
I don't know. I don't know. William might be king, might not be king. I don't know what might happen, actually.
Perhaps more importantly,
he might go and live in Africa and look after animals, which is what he wanted to do.
Well, according to some, he's living with one. Talking of which, let's finish as we started. Do you think they're still at it under the stars in Africa, Angela Levin?
That I don't know. That I won't know. But
how do you know that she seduced him under the stars in Africa? How did you get this information? This is extraordinary.
Because I was writing his biography and I heard all sorts of things and was told all sorts of things.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely true.
What, that she basically used herself sexually to secure herself a prince?
A lot of people do sort of try and make themselves very attractive to men. You must know that. But she did it...
I've never made myself attractive to men, Angela Levin. What are you trying to say?
Women.
Oh, right, OK, fair enough. I've missed you. I'm so... All I can think about is the stars now. Listen, I'd worry about cockroaches up my pants. Listen, I'm glad you're well, and it's great to have you back on. Please come again soon. Fantastic. We love her. Angela Levin, royal biographer, telling us that Meghan seduced Harry under the stars in Africa and used her womanly wiles. Haven't we all done that? Have you ever had to... Under the stars... I don't know. I'd worry. What about frost if you fell asleep? Anyway, 0344 499 1000. News at 9 is next on Talk's Breakfast, the home of common sense, unless I'm speaking to Angela Levin. Back in 3.
The world is on fire. Russia, Iran, China, conflicts brewing in all of their different regions. They're not waiting. But here in Britain, our armed forces are underfunded, they're undermanned, and they're underprepared. And nobody in government wants to talk about it. Well, we do. I'm Philip Ingram, and I spent my career in the world of intelligence, military planning, strategic planning, and unfortunately, conflict. This is Talk War, and this is where we analyse the conflicts shaping our world.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Over the past 36 hours, the United States and its partners have launched Operation Epic Fury, one of the largest, most complex, most overwhelming military offensives the world has ever seen. Nobody's seen anything like it. We have hit hundreds of targets in Iran, including Revolutionary Guard facilities, Iranian air defense systems. Just now, it was announced that we knocked out 9 ships plus their naval building, all in a matter of literally minutes. Iran's formerly supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, is dead.
I spoke to you about the situation in the Gulf and explained that the United Kingdom was not involved in the strikes on Iran. That remains the case. The basis of our decision is the collective self-defense of long-standing friends and allies and protecting British lives. That is in accordance with international law, and we are publishing a summary of our legal advice. We are not joining these strikes, but we will continue with our defensive actions in the region.
Mr Farage, would a reform government have allowed US forces to use UK air bases for offensive operations in Iran?
Yes is the answer to your question. I would have said to the Americans, please do use our bases. We will be supportive of you on this.
There were a series of very loud blasts in the area of Dubai that I'm based in. That's in the marina area. It's a very touristy area, actually. Those blasts were the loudest we've heard yet, but equally we are reassured that they are most likely the sound of interception by the UAE's quite sophisticated THAAD interception kit. That is the Terminal High Altitude Area Defence System.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. I wouldn't call it a superior start. I'd call it a normal start, but there we go. Just got 9 o'clock. We're live across the UK. You would Talk, of course, the home of common sense and the home of the alarm clock. Brit, thanks for tuning in today. JK till 10. And Julia, back in the hot seat from 10 o'clock this morning. If you want to be on, 0344 499 1000 is the only number you need. Text to 87222. What are we talking about? Well, you're waking up to the front page of The Sun. You'll have heard it in the news. We've reached 200,000 illegal migrants into this country in 8 short years, and despite what our Prime Minister said about one in, one out, 200,000 in, 7,612 out, which means the number of people that live in York have arrived here illegally and we don't know where they are. Whatever your political persuasion, that is an issue that many politicians have said they have answers to and they don't. The other thing we're talking about today, we use about Starmer and the Royals and all that, but talking about the elections on Thursday. Obviously, when if you're just tuning in, I've said this all morning for a reason. It's really important when you're broadcasting around an election that you're fair and honest and open. This morning we've spoken to Serene Duncan-Smith from the Tory party, Sarah Pochin from Reform. We spoke to a Remainer, a person who wanted to leave the EU. We're going to speak to Carl Turner, ex-Labour, now independent, just a tick. But I'm not interested about how you're going to vote on Thursday. I'm interested in, are you going to vote, right? Because a lot of people are going, can't be asked, bothered, whatever you want to say. Why not? You can't presumably be happy with what's going on. You can't presumably not have an opinion. And those people that go, there's no point. What did Sarah Pochin say? She won a seat by 6 votes. There is a point. And you know, people will say, my forefathers, you know, they worked hard, I should vote. Others, and I make this point, are saying, we haven't got local elections in our locality this Thursday, and that's an absolute disgrace, because everybody should have the right within a democracy to say, that's what I think. But don't fall into the guise of, it doesn't matter. Maybe I'm old-fashioned, but I believe that your vote always should matter. What do you make of that? 0344 499 1000. Jez, I'm so angry, says Laura Donovan. Our local elections are not taking place. I'm desperate to vote, but I'm afraid I'm not allowed to. Very interesting. Boris Johnson is one of the first people to supply Ukraine with weapons. Why do we now need to pay the EU £1 billion to do so? Says Roz in London. Jane, good morning. If Harry does come back, I reckon he'll probably write about his marriage to Meghan and make shed loads of money. Can't see him writing a book about sex under the stars, but there we go. 9:05, too much information. Sarah, hello.
Morning, Jezza. Great show. Go, Kemi. You go, girl. What a fantastic put down of that silly little thing that she was arguing with. Really well done. Jezza, I've got to disagree with you. You're harping on about this reform policy. And if you think about it, I didn't vote Labour, but we've got this lot and I'm going to have to put up with it. Does that mean I can whinge and moan about it? Well, I mean, I do. But, you know, I actually think it's quite funny. Yeah, so, yeah, I kind of get where you're coming from, but I think you need to stop moaning. Sorry, just saying.
What am I moaning about? The reform policy yesterday said, I'm confused now, the reform policy yesterday that Zia came on the show and talked about was to build detention centres. Primarily, they were thinking of building those in green constituencies to, well, to basically say to people like Polanski, you voted for it, you enjoy it. I get that. I've said all day, I get that. I simply stuck my head above the parapet and said, what about if I lived in one of them constituencies and I vote Labour or Tory or well, no, yeah. Would I feel put upon? But there's a bigger issue, to be fair, Sarah, which I think we all as a society, whatever our political persuasion, if there is a government that's finally going to do something about this ridiculous decision, right, about allowing hundreds of thousands of people in unvetted to do whatever to our country, to the point where it's ruining so much of it, whatever the do-gooders tell you, then I think we're all going to have to swallow detention centres in all sorts of places, in all sorts of constituencies. And I use the analogy all morning about the people that go, we need more houses. Not in my constituency. No, I like my garden. No, sod your garden. We're going to build some houses, and I'm sorry, there might be places that we build detention centres you're going to have to deal with. That would be my view. 0344 499 1000. A man who was a Labour MP had the courage to criticise the Prime Minister and is now the independent MP for Hull East. Good friend of the show. A very good morning, Carl Turner. How are you, Carl?
Good morning, Jeremy. Very well. It's lovely and sun shining in Hull, and I'm going to be out in a few minutes banging on doors and trying to persuade people to vote.
Now, obviously, you would understand, when it comes to local elections, I can't go down specific parties. You know that, you're an intelligent man. But I have a sort of a couple of questions. I put this to Ian Duncan Smith, I put it to Sarah Pochin. It's not people's duty, but I think people need to get off their backsides and vote, whatever their political persuasion, don't you, Carl?
Absolutely. I always say to people in elections, look, vote. You've got to vote. If you don't like what I'm saying or doing, vote against me. But get out and vote, because it's a democratic right which society needs. We need to have elections in order for people to voice their opinion. And if they don't do it, governments get away with murder.
Completely agree. Also, again, without being too because you're going to go and knock on doors, but you're no longer a part of the Labour Party. What are you telling people to do then?
I'm still a member of the Labour Party. I've not got the Labour whip in Parliament, but there's a lot of people in my constituency who are activists in the Labour Party, good candidates, people who work hard all year round. I don't think they should suffer for what is essentially a government that's unpopular. These people deal with emptying bins, clearing the streets of rubbish, antisocial behaviour and such things, and trying to mend potholes, incidentally. Stuff that matters, and they're activists who campaign all year round and work hard. I'm supporting them people, Jeremy. I think there's some good people. I don't think they should be let down by central government, and they are.
What's really interesting for me? I've had three high-profile politicians on this morning: Sir Ian Duncan Smith, the Prime Minister we never had, Sarah Pochen, who won Runcorn and Helsby by 6 votes. Pretty impressive lady, magistrate for 20 years. And Carl Turner, one of the very few, and I mean this, on the left that I admire hugely. And probably if you were my MP, I'd just vote for you because you're a good man and you like to buy people a drink. But on a serious note, you've all mentioned the same thing this morning. Is this because there are local elections that you're all suddenly talking about potholes, hear me out, and bin collections? Because one of the things that strikes me is, and I don't know because I'm not out there doing a job, is we've been weighed down by migration, by Gaza, by the EU. And have we, or have politicians forgotten too much of the time across the year, unless it's election time locally, about the fact that your average Mr. and Mrs. or Mrs. and Mrs. or Mr. and Mr., because I'm trying to be politically correct, actually don't care too much about Gaza or the EU. They do care about the fact their car's been screwed again because it's driven over a hole, or their bins haven't been collected and there's rats running down the road. Is that not the reality?
I think it is absolutely reality, Jeremy. But I think what happens is, if a government is unpopular, you would avoid, as best you can, the issues of central government. So that is the problem that politicians have. If you're a reform candidate in these local elections, you're going to be talking about getting Starmer out because the Reforms have decided, the Reform Party's decided this is a referendum on the Prime Minister. So they'll be speaking about that. Other activists, Lib Dems, I'm going to mention them all, Greens, the Labour candidates and everybody else will be talking about local issues because clearly we want to get them off the central issue, which is the unpopularity of Keir Starmer.
I would respectfully suggest that the Greens won't be talking about local issues, in my humble opinion. They'll be talking about Gaza. But I take your point. Taking that point with you about Starmer and the government, you know, nationally, centrally against the local issues, which I think you're dead right about. Reported today that your leader has been kept away from local election campaign trails because he's toxic. Forecasts will have your party losing up to 2,000 seats, Carl. We don't know that. But apparently proof today that Labour MPs are discussing plans to demand him to set a date for his resignation in the sort of same open letter that Blair was sent before he agreed to the handover to Gordon Brown. Do you know anything about this? Do you support that action?
I don't know anything about it, but I'm not surprised that backbench Labour MPs who came in 2024 disgruntled and concerned. Look, these local elections are going to be the test, right? Because MPs go back to Parliament, they look at their own situation, they think, goodness me, if this was a general election, I'm gone. And that's what concentrates minds. So they'll already be congregated in the corridors of Parliament saying, what do we do if it's really bad? That letter will go out, but I don't think it'll make any difference to Keir. Keir's not going anywhere.
Well, I read you yesterday, and I think you were treated abominably by him and his government. But take that aside, you said somewhere yesterday you don't think he's going anywhere. Why?
Just think he'll hang on. I don't think he's the type to just say, all right, enough's enough, I'll call it a day. I think he's intent on staying as the leader of the party. And if the Labour Party wants rid of him, he's going to have to be dragged out of number 10 Downing Street. That's the style Keir is. I know the guy well. He's not going.
He might not go, but do you think that he should set a date for a departure, you yourself?
I think look, I'm trying to be absolutely honest with you. I think it's difficult for a PM to say, right, this is the day I'm going, because you miss the date and people say, well, you said you were going. I don't think he's going to do that. And if I was advising him, I'd advise him against it, actually, because it gets the electorate excited about the prospect. The media talk about who the successor is and all the rest of the stuff that goes with it, which takes the emphasis off running the country.
But you could argue, Carl, I love having conversations. You could also argue, but because of the mistakes he's made and the pressure he's under and the fact this isn't from talk, this is universally known, he's the most unpopular Prime Minister since recordings began, that debate's not going to go away. There are many in the Labour Party and the media saying, if in a professional, nice way he could say, right, I've done my bit, I won a large majority, I'm going to give up at the party conference after 2.5 years and pass the baton to whoever the hell it is, that would somehow be better. But I would suggest that all those MPs that you say are looking in their inbox going, oh, we're toast. I sort of think they're toast anyway, whoever leads. I'm sorry to put that upon you. I know you... I don't... Much as I felt with the Tories, I don't think the Labour Party can bring this back at all in the next 2.5 years. I really don't.
Well, it's gobsmacking, isn't it, that 2 years into a government, we're in a position of the point, potentially, the point of no return as a result of the leadership we've had, which I think is absolutely tragic. But let me just put it like this here. Look, the person I'm thinking is Neil Kinnock. Neil Kinnock felt the Labour Party. He changed the Labour Party. He thought he might be the Prime Minister in 92. We didn't win. But he had that feeling for the Labour Party. That doesn't exist with Keir Starmer, I'm afraid. Look, I often say, Jeremy, the Labour Party is the nearest thing I've got to a religion. But if the Labour Party was the Church of England, Keir Starmer would be the chief executive of it.
Well, he's the God. It means he's your God right now.
Well, he's not the spiritual leader, is my point. He doesn't feel it. No. He's the chief executive of it.
Yeah.
Now, if he did feel it, like Kinnock felt it, and Andy Burnham feels it, and Angie Rayner feels it, and Wes Streeting feels it, if he did feel it, these 150 MPs or whatever it is doing an open letter would make him think, right, it's time now. I'm going to bow out gracefully. But he doesn't feel it in that way, in my view.
Yeah, but you can surely. They have that great, famous Tory thing when the men, was it Sir Graham Brady, would go through the back door of number 10. The men in the grey suits have decided, Liz, it's over, Boris, it's over, and you have to go. I know he's pig-headed and he's a human rights lawyer and, you know, let's not forget the way he treated you. We don't need to broadcast that again, and I think you're being very fair. I understand that you are a Labour supporter at heart, but the way you've been treated by the person you say is the chief executive is nothing short of outrageous, in my opinion, which I'm entitled to. So it says something about that you're still saying this. What I'm saying is he might not want to, but those very MPs that you say are going to be looking at their inbox are going to be told on the streets, I suspect, Thursday might also prove this, that you've got a cat in hell's chance of even beginning to stop the steamroller, let alone turn it round, unless you get rid of this person. And you're telling me that wouldn't happen. There must be people within the Labour Party who are brave enough to say, you're too toxic here, you're out, done. Sorry, mate, we've got 450 of us whose jobs, careers, livelihoods, whatever, are more important than your ego, pal.
I agree with that, Jeremy, but I think you're right, because the tone in the cabinet, I saw the media round at the weekend, and Heidi Alexander, who's the Transport Secretary, was speaking that Keir Starmer is the person to lead the Labour Party for now, she effectively said. That's sort of intimating. So that's hardly a resounding sort of support for the PM. So there is a talk in the cabinet. I have absolutely no doubt that his time is coming to an end. But it's about whether he decides it's coming to an end. And
is it down to him, though, Carl? Is it down to him?
It is, because we don't have the mechanism in the Labour Party like the Tories do. They have the 1922 committee.
Do you think you should have the mechanism? Serious question.
Well, I've suggested it to potential leaders that we ought to have a similar thing to the 1922, so that you have disgruntled MPs, they put the private letter in, it gets to a certain number, 10% of the PLP or whatever the number is, and then that's presented to the PM, and he's then advised, or she's then advised, that the game's up. I think that's a better way forward, personally. But we have the National Executive. The rules are very different. The leader of the Labour Party is there as long as the leader wants to be there, no matter how disastrous the results are going to be. I think we're going to have a terrible evening on Thursday. I hope we don't. Genuinely, I do. But I think it's going to be bad. We're likely to lose Wales. Since devolution began in 1999, I think it was, we've always held Wales. Since Wales existed, in fact, the Labour Party has existed in Wales as a majority. The Labour Party was built from the Welsh valleys, for crying out loud, Nye Bevan and all of the rest of them who spearheaded the movement, and it became the Labour Party, which was the political wing of the trade union movement. This is an historic loss for us if we lose control in Wales. I think that's disastrous. I think in Scotland as well, we should be taking control of Scotland. Why? Because the SNP have not been very clever in the 19 years they've held power. That's just my opinion. I don't think the way the polling is going, the opinion polling that is, we're going to win in Scotland, and we should be doing.
I
now,
think you'll be struggling
leading,
to come third or fourth in both parts, but I don't know. Listen, let me
but
put this
if that was
to you.
me, Jeremy, let me just complete that point if you don't mind. If that was me leading the Labour Party,
would you go?
Because I feel it deep in
Would
me.
you if Carl Turner woke up on Friday morning as the leader of the Labour Party and you'd suffered 2,000 council seat losses, and for the first time in your movement's history you weren't ruling Wales or Scotland, irrespective of procedures, mechanisms, gut feeling, would you fall on your sword?
I would announce immediately my departure, and I would arrange for a transition to whoever is the interim leader. I would then allow the Labour Party to elect its new leader, because that's the way it's got to be done.
Yep.
But I would announce immediately, and I would ask for the support of the civil service, the Cabinet Office and the Cabinet as a transition so that the economy keeps stable and doesn't panic, for a new leader to be interim pending an election within
that's
the party.
probably why you're not the leader of Labour, because that sounds very moral and correct. Now, no, you're not going to answer it, but you'll know I've a job to do. I read over the weekend that if they do move, it's all game. So Wes Streeting, hear me out, allegedly has the 81 plus MPs that you need to show your hand. The left of the party, Rayner, who you said you support, we're not sure if she's over the tax thing with HMRC yet. You've got Ed Miliband, you tell me doesn't want it, was absolutely rejected by the British people in 2015. I don't know who else, but I read something that was very interesting, that if Wes Streeting decides to plunge the knife in because now is the time, somebody from the left will have to jump up and show their face, because he would be anointed with no challenge, and everybody in the Labour Party knows that if Angela Rayner or Ed Miliband, or frankly anybody on the left, took it to a ballot with the members, Wes Streeting wouldn't get anywhere near number 10 Downing Street. And of course, within the same context of that argument, that uncertainty keep Starmer there. But I like what you just said. One thing that I think this man has done, I'm not a Labour supporter, but I absolutely understand. Nye Bevan, the welfare state, the National Health Service, where it started, unions. I have my feelings about what it became, but I know the very essence of the Labour movement is not in any way a mirror image of what you have today. And if this man cared less about human rights, his own political career, or his lawyer mates like Hermer, if it is as bad, he should behave as Carl Turner would have behaved, because the movement will be more important to him than his own political career. That's the point of the conversation in my mind, Carl.
Yeah, and the point you've just made is right. Look, if Streeting decides to move, and I think he probably might, he denies that he's intending to, but I think he probably might if it's as bad as we expect, then Rayner goes. I think Rayner would have very little option, because people like me, frankly, I don't mind saying this, I think Wes Streeting's a brilliant communicator, but I'd prefer somebody other than Wes at this moment in time, because I think policy is incredibly important, Jeremy, and what the country needs is delivery on policy, and we don't need more of the same. So if Wes Streeting decided to run, I think Rayner would run, and I think she would win with a membership. But the problem they have at the moment is the party on the left, the soft left and the left, the Socialist Campaign Group in Parliament, are split between Rayner and Andy Burnham. Now, it's wishful thinking about Andy at the minute because he's not in Parliament. So that's the problem we've got. I think Angie Rayner would have to run. I think she would win with the membership. And I think that Burnham would come in at a later point. There's not a deal to be done when you're not in Parliament. And that's Andy's problem. Although I think he'd be really popular and I think he'd be a good leader of the party. And I think his sort of stuff he's done in Manchester has proven successful.
What about then the argument going back to Starmer and you saying he won't move and you talking in your own mind about how you would do the right and decent thing? He blocked a man who many in your parliamentary party and indeed your membership wanted to be given the opportunity to have his case said. This is almost dictatorial. And maybe you're right. Starmer will hang on at all costs. But just to finish, the analogy in my head that's going round, Carl, is what Rishi Sunak did. Because I don't care whether people disagree with what I'm going to say. Rishi Sunak threw the Conservative Party under the bus. He gave up. He called an election. Nigel Evans was telling me eruditely the other day, it was 3 or 4, 5, 6 months before it needed to happen. A lot of them were going to lose their seats, perhaps not as much if a new leader or they'd made other arguments, much like you're saying. I wonder whether Starmer, and this is my final question to you, is that obsessed with power or legacy or whatever that he would actually say to anybody who tries to overthrow him, you do that and I call a bloody election, you'll all lose your jobs.
I don't think he'd do that because I don't think he's sort of kamikaze. He knows that if he went to the country anytime soon, we'd lose badly and that MPs would lose the jobs. That's not what he's likely to do, in my view. But I think he'll hold on for as long as he possibly can. I think there'll be a threat from the back rooms of number 10 Downing Street, i.e. the political people who say to MPs, if you trigger a selection, a contest for the leadership now, that inevitably means there'll be an earlier general election. I don't think it does. But it is true that people like you and other journalists in the media will be saying, you've no mandate, Mr. Burnham.
It's what the Labour Party, it's what the Labour Party, Carl, said with respect every time the Tories changed party leader, didn't they?
It's what I said. I was constantly opening my gob saying, what mandate have you got, Richard? What mandate have you got, Liz Truss, or whoever it was? Boris is the only one who had a mandate because he had the bottle to go to the country. And do you know what? I think, and I say this regularly actually, Boris Johnson had something special. I didn't like it, Jeremy, because I didn't want him to be the leader and the PM. But he had something special. Even when it was at the very end of Boris Johnson's reign, people in my constituency still liked Boris. And that is something that is unusual in politics. I think Burnham's got a bit of that. You're not going to like what I said, but I think Angie Rayner's got a bit of that.
Rob, I've got to take you to task. Rob from Newcastle, he said, I like Carl Turner. I think he's a decent man. He wants Rayner. He's off his nut. That's what he said. He said, you're off your nut to even be contemplating that woman as the next Prime Minister of this country. 20 seconds to answer, Rob in Newcastle.
That is what happens, you know. It's sort of Marmite, isn't it? People like... She's a bit like Prescott, in my view. People loved him. People couldn't stand him.
Can you imagine her punching a union official? I probably can. She'd probably lay him out, wouldn't she?
She don't mess about, doesn't Angie Rayner? And she, you know, she's down to earth. She's sort of normal, really. And she could go in a pub and have a pint with anybody. That's something that is a bit special in politics. Most politicians are a bit weird, Jeremy. Let's be honest.
Carl, mate, listen, I love having you on, pal, and we really, really appreciate it. We'll speak to you later in the week, mate, but thank you so much indeed. Now, the independent MP for Hull East, lost the whip in Parliament, always ready to speak his mind. Carl Turner, thank you very much indeed. What is it, 9:27? We're live across the United Kingdom. It's Tuesday the 5th of May. Hopefully you're back at work. I mean, you know, we were here yesterday. It's fine. Half an hour to go. So much to do. 0344 499 1000. Daniel, good morning.
Jezza, it's Daniel from Epsom here. I think it's so important now that the ordinary, what I would call the British majority out there, vote and we get our voices heard. It's time that I think personally it's our last chance to save this country. This is our last chance to save Great Britain. So important that we go out and vote on Thursday. But I think it's our last chance to save this country, Jez.
Peter Capaldi!
It just so happens that it's all "you're amazing."
Right. Paul White! Sir Lenny Henry!
I was face down and the dog sniffed my crotch. It was very, very embarrassing.
Staying out for the summer.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 9:30 just gone. It is Tuesday, the 5th of May. We're live across the United Kingdom. Breakfast until 10. Julia Hartley-Brewer from 10, Ian Collins from 1, and Kev O'Sullivan on Drive. That's your Talk lineup for Tuesday. Let's do some voice notes. 0344 499 1000. Morning, Steve.
Morning, Jezza. Steve from Bexley Heath here. So that guy that said that he's thinking of not voting for reform now because he doesn't want the illegals put into his constituency, is he now saying that, oh, if I don't, I'll vote for someone else? I'm quite happy for them to just walk around my constituency wherever they want, whatever time they want. He's quite happy with that, is he? Idiot.
Interesting. Paul, good morning.
Good morning, Jeremy. Paul up in Hartlepool. I noticed your contributor, James Ball, said it was just another £1 billion. We owe over £3,000 billion at the moment, and by the time these clowns leave, God forbid if they go their whole term, it will be £3,500 billion, 3.5 trillion. These people have no concept of money. The sooner that we stop spending money we haven't got and the gilt markets punish us, the better. Great show. Good morning.
Sorry, what was that? HMS Dragon, that ship finally getting to where it was supposed to go. It's bloody hot in this studio, by the way. I don't know if something sort of, unless I'm going through the hot flush moment of my life at 60. It's about 92 degrees. I've given up. Could somebody come and turn that down? Honest to God, it's extraordinary, the heating. I don't want to moan. I'm very lucky to be here, but how hot's that?
Blimey.
Thank you. I feel like I've sat in a sauna and maybe I should take my clothes off. 03, have you heard that joke? No, I'm not going to do it. 03, Jethro, he went to what he thought was the sauna. Honestly, took all his clothes off and the smoke disappeared. He was in a fish and chip shop. 0344 499 1000, text to 87222. Now, the one thing I love about British people is, right, they all this stuff about politics, they're actually concerned about relevant things like potholes. They're obviously concerned about migrants. They're also concerned about the fact that you can't go to the pub, it seems, and have a pint anymore. Around 2 pubs closed each day in the first 3 months of this year. The British Beer and Pub Association said 161 had shut their doors for good in that period, equating to the loss of 2,500 jobs. It's also a 26% jump on the same time last year. This man's a bit of a dude. I've seen him online, I've seen him on other shows. We're quite honoured to have him here. Adam Brooks, broadcaster and, frankly, publican. Does it mean he owns or rents? I've no idea. The 3 Colts in Buckhurst Hill. Good morning, Adam Brooks.
How you doing, Jeremy?
Is that your pub then, son?
Yeah, it is my pub, yeah, but keep your clothes on. I was listening just a minute ago. I don't want no naked interviews, all right?
No, is he just on the phone? Are we not seeing him today? I've lost him. I can't see. Oh, there he is. Lovely. Sat in front of a dark screen. So you own this pub and you've never invited any of us on the breakfast show to come and have a free lunch, yeah?
I've run that pub. I'm a leaseholder. I've run that pub for about 13, 14 years now. Grew up above pubs as well, so it's in me blood. Love the industry, and what's happening to it is a disgrace, mate.
Well, let's talk about that. Figures show that 2 pubs closed each day in the first 3 months of the year. I'm quite outspoken on how this government came to power talking about growth, but it seems to me, and not just in the hospitality trade, but if you increase NI, you make workers' rights, you increase the minimum wage, you're going to actually destroy smaller businesses and medium-sized businesses, which should be the lifeblood of an economy. And certainly in terms of your business, I'm guessing it becomes harder and harder to succeed, right?
Look, I've been a publican now on my own 20-odd years. It's the hardest it's ever been. Let's not let off the Tories. The Tories didn't help us one bit. So it's successive governments that have hurt the pub trade. We're paying 10 times the amount of beer tax that Germany does. So the odds are always stacked against us. Pub rents are disproportionately high. Business rates are disproportionately high. Then we had COVID. COVID absolutely changed the way people use the pubs. People that you would see 3-4 times a week, you might see them once a week now. So we're lucky to have got through COVID and all those unscientific restrictions. Then came the energy crisis, Jeremy. I've got that pub is a little backstreet pub. It's an absolute cracker. It's like an old East End pub that I've got just on the suburbs of London in Essex. I was paying £5,000 a month electric alone during the height of the electricity crisis. So, we got through that, wiped out any savings that we had. And then, a train straight through the middle, Rachel Reeves comes with these 2 budgets, national insurance contributions, hike is probably the worst budget decision, I would say, in 2 decades. It makes no sense. It punishes those that want to give people work. It makes it too expensive to hire, people, especially non-experienced people as well. It added about that and the minimum wage and a few other things, business rates going up, have added about £500, maybe £600 a week to my cost. So it's about £30,000 a year extra that I've got to cover just because of Rachel Reeves. People say, she's clever. I don't know.
I haven't met anybody who said that. I've met many people who say she can't add up.
Within Labour, they say she's a competent chancellor. For me, this looks like a deliberate destruction of the hospitality sector. 150,000 jobs have been lost via 2 budgets alone. You can't do that when you're being warned. So something about this has to be deliberate. It doesn't make sense.
Let me pick you up on that, because it's quite interesting, actually. The reason I wanted to do this, apart from having you on, which I love doing, is the analogy of we were an easy target. 150,000 jobs have gone in your industry since this party took power. But you were honest enough, and I think you're right, to talk about the Tories in the past as well. It's a bit like defence, Adam. I mean, there's a story in the paper today saying we've got 5 frigates, of which one is HMS Dragon, you feet, which is still stuck somewhere off Cyprus because the water doesn't work. But on a serious note, 4 years, starting with Cameron, It was the easy target defence, wasn't it? Oh, and all of a sudden there's a world war potentially around the corner and we're about the most undefendable nation the world's... I think it was brought home to me that when HMS Dragon was trying to get to Cyprus, that a ship from Luxembourg got there first and they're bloody landlocked. It's the same with the pub industry. Why do we seemingly have governments who have taken decisions to attack things that work without wondering or working out what the long-term implications of that will be?
Because they're clueless. Over the last 20, 30 years, our MPs have been clueless. And the worst thing is they're being advised by people that are even more clueless, that don't live in the real world. They come out of university with all these qualifications and then they tell the MPs what they want to hear or what they think they know. If they come and spoke to people like me or people on the street, they would know that what they've been trying to do over the last 2 decades is completely wrong. They're not representing us as people anymore. They're dictating to us. That's not what UK politics and Parliament was designed to do. They're meant to represent our interests. Now, the Great British Pub is part of our heritage, part of our culture. We're seeing that eroded all around us. You know, we're importing en masse people that are culturally far different from us. They don't want to protect pubs. They don't even want pubs in their local high road because it might offend them. You know, we are breaking down as a country. And one of your last voice notes was true. This is our last chance. These local elections and the next general election, we are at a crossroads. If we go left again, we're finished. And I've got to say, if I had enough money, I would take my family away because this country is getting more and more dangerous. The crime levels are spiraling. You never see police officers, and it's not the officers on the ground, it's the ones that are in charge in the offices. They're all woke idiots. So we've got woke idiots in government. We've got woke idiots running the police. We are becoming a hellhole to live in. And as I say, this is Judgment Day on Thursday.
Do you know what's really interesting? How old are you? Am I allowed to ask you that?
I'm 46.
So I'm 60 and I sit here most mornings, Ad, right? And I genuinely mean this. I think if I dug my dad up, that sounds awful, but if he was here, well, I'm not going to dig him up, but if he was here, because he's not, and I said to him, and I said this earlier, we've got no navy, right? Literally no navy. There's less people in our combined armed forces that have come in the last 18 months, let alone 200,000 in the last 8 years. You're allowed to walk into a shop and nick up to 200 quid's worth of stuff and walk out without anybody doing anything. You can send your kids to school where they'll be taught anything or everything that's against everything that you've ever believed in. He would have looked at me, Adam, in the face and laughed his bloody head off. And sometimes I say to myself, I'm glad he's not here. I go as far as you, if not further. I think the very fabric of what this country was about, Great Britain, for one of being accused of being a patriot, has gone. Community, family, decency, aspiration. Now we have a career choice. Go to work, go to college, sign on. Never meant to be that. Now we say to people, thanks for paying your taxes, but you know what? You can't have a drink and you can't smoke and you can't meet in the pub. And by the way, you can't see a doctor and you can't see a dentist, but we're going to give that to everybody who comes into our country. The other day, I was telling somebody earlier on the show, I was talking about, I live down on the coast now. I was talking about this poor young girl, aged 17, that was attacked on the beach in Bournemouth a couple of years ago, and it came to court. It was 2 migrant men, one specifically, and he used all the excuses with the law. This isn't the same law as my country, blah, blah, blah. So I had an argument with one of those lefties, I won't name her, and she said to me, and I quote, white men rape girls as well. And I sat there thinking, listen, there isn't a racist bone in my body, but the fabric of this country is on its backside, pal. It really is.
It is. And look, just quickly, I'm known, obviously, in my area and in some parts of the media for the man that stood outside the Bell Hotel in Epping, and I broke this story. And I've been labelled racist, I've been labelled far right for telling the truth about a migrant man that just 8 days before had come over on a dinghy and then decided to sexually assault a local 14-year-old girl. A 14-year-old girl that goes to the same school as my 2 nieces. It is disgusting what's happening to this country. And any lefty that wants to try and defend the amount of these migrants that are coming over, raping, sexually assaulting, murdering our young girls and our women is sick in the head. The whataboutery and saying, oh, yeah, but white man do it. Yes, they are preventable the ones that come
Do,
across.
do you know
are
my
invincible
approach to it?
crimes.
And I remember when we were coming on air for the first time, and people, how are you going to deal with it? It's really simple to me, okay? Not just because I've done this for a long time. I don't care about the colour of your skin, your religion, your creed, your caste, whatever. I don't. I've got friends. I tell the story every day about the guy that picks me up who came from Bangladesh. He's more appalled about illegal immigration because he built a business and pays tax and his kids go to school, etc., etc. I don't care where you come from. I don't care the colour of his skin. That's not the point. A man who thinks it's okay to rape a woman or a child, be it the grooming gangs, has no place in the society I want to live in. Fact. End of. But if you are allowing unvetted men to come into your country who have different morals and different values and they're not being checked, then you're asking for problems. Can you come on regularly? I think you're great.
Thanks, mate. It's a pleasure to be. I used to watch you growing up, so I'm showing my age there.
Well, it'd be a pleasure to be invited to your small little pub for lunch. We'll do that off air. Listen, good one.
Definitely.
AB, thanks for coming on. And just to finish, to make him smile and all of you, for old time's sake, let's just pleasure ourselves. That didn't sound right. By playing that "Shut Up, You Lot," by playing a clip of Starmer being kicked out of a pub. Play it.
Man is not allowed in my pub. No, Lord. I'm not going to physically hurt him. That man. Oi! That's assault. I am not bothering you. I am not bothering him. That man is not allowed in my pub. Get out of my pub. Go on. Calm yourself down. Get out of my pub. Calm down. Sorry.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. 13 minutes to 10. We're live across the United Kingdom. So much to do. Rob, good morning.
Morning, Jez. I had an interesting conversation with a couple of people I class as friends who all got into the nitty-gritties about the vote coming up. My argument to them was that things had to change, and I couldn't believe that this government so quickly had slid into the position it had. They argued they hadn't been given long enough. I argued that they came with no policies whatsoever. The argument ended up with them saying, I've always voted Labour, my father's father voted Labour, and that's the way we have to vote. Do the right thing, vote for the only people that are going to change things. God bless whoever you vote for. But don't just vote for somebody because somebody else did. Have a lovely day, everybody.
There he is, the voice of the balls. 12 minutes to 10. We're live across the United Kingdom. Jez, there is an option to say none of the above on the ballot paper. Spoiled ballots get counted and represent a protest vote, says Adrian in Wales. And that's our point. We started this at 6 o'clock. When you're broadcasting in the middle of an election, it's not how you vote, that's your business. That's the point of it being secret. I just think when I sit here every single day and I hear the anger and the bitterness and the frustration about so much, some support as well for things, that you need to be able to exercise your right to have an opinion. And Sarah Pochin rather brought it back to us earlier on when she announced, of course, that she had won her seat by 6 votes. That's not very helpful, is it, Terry? Thank you very much indeed. Good. He just said, bring back the death penalty. That's a way to get through a Tuesday morning, isn't it? There we go. Right, before we finish this morning, delighted to be joined by Conservative peer and pollster Lord Hayward. Lord Hayward, a very good morning. Welcome to the show. How are you?
Good morning.
We're flipping around with all sorts of stuff here. I'll ask you, as I asked Sir Ian Duncan-Smith, as I asked Sarah Pochin, as I asked Carl Turner. We've done all extremes, really, this morning. These local elections, I'm not interested in how people will vote, but do you yourself believe that it is important that those people who go, oh, it's not worth it, are missing the point, my friend?
I've always thought it was important that people should vote, and having been to other countries where people are denied the vote, they have no opportunity, or the elections are rigged in some form or another, I think we should value democracy and value the opportunity to vote.
I suppose there are many people actually who have texted us this morning who have already said that they have been denied the opportunity to vote. I know that Reform managed to secure via a judicial review an extra 4.7 million people being able to vote on Thursday, but actually a lot of people contacting us this morning saying we still are not able to and are very frustrated by that, Lord Hayward.
Please call me Robert, by the way.
Robert.
But I took the battle in the House of Lords to ensure that there were elections everywhere where they were due to be. I'm not sure what somebody's referring to if they're denied the vote because they could have registered the opportunity.
No, but there are still areas where there won't be elections, is what I'm saying. Yeah.
Thank you. That's because there's varied cycles of elections. Some people vote in 2026. They probably didn't vote in 2025. So it's not a question of being denied local elections. It's a question of the cycle on which they operate. London boroughs, for example, vote every 4 years, 2022, 2026. So it just depends where you are in the country.
You're a pollster as well as a Conservative peer. What is your view from your position about Thursday?
I've made clear what I expect to be the position. I expect Labour to lose unbelievably heavily to a level that one's not seen from an incoming government, I think, ever in this country. I've said that they will lose somewhere around 1,850 seats. They're defending 2,500. So that means they're going to lose about 3/4 of the seats. The Conservatives will lose quite a lot of seats, partly because the current government deferred a lot of elections from last year, and those elections were based previously on the Boris Bounce vaccine year. So it's fairly complex. The big winner in seats will be Reform and then the Greens. The question for Reform is whether they do as well, better or worse than they did last year. The Greens are at the moment looking very, very strong relative to their previous performances.
What about the Liberal Democrats? We need to keep this as balanced as possible. They haven't really been in the equation. Where do you, in your mind, believe they sit?
I think there'll be a small gainer. But the interesting thing about it, and it's important that, as you say, you remind everybody, because there are elections in Scotland and in Wales as well, that the Liberal Democrats were the party of protest. It was the place you went to automatically to object to the big two parties. Now, because of the Greens and Reform, the Liberal Democrats have got a bit squeezed in terms of being the party of protest. But they're strong in a number of areas, and they will see their gains in some places, but they may also lose in others.
Interestingly, you talked about Labour. As a pollster, you believe they'll see more losses than any sitting government has, upwards of 1,850 to 2,000 seats. They hold 2,500 seats. Starmer or policy, Robert?
Oh, Starmer, the one set of election leaflets you will not find reference to Keir Starmer on is the Labour Party.
Wow.
And there are suggestions in the papers that he's not going to certain parts of the country. That's always an indication that you have an unpopular leader. He's not the first party leader that local parties have said don't come in this area. He won't be the last.
Is he the first party leader that every single association in every single area has said across the UK, don't come?
I'm not sure. I think that's not credible. I think some people will have said, you're happy to have you here, but relatively few. You asked about Starmer or policy. It is policy as well as Keir Starmer, because there's a lot of unpopular policies being followed. You've just been talking about pubs, and I must declare an interest here. I was the chief executive of the Beer and Pub Association before I became a member of the House of Lords. So I'm not sure which is the better job title.
Certainly going to be interesting. And just to finish, do you think that if it goes as bad as you as a pollster predict, that Starmer will leave, will be forced out, will set a resignation timescale?
I think from all the stories in the newspapers that the vultures are circling, as you indicated, I'm a Conservative peer, but my contacts in the Labour Party seem to show that it won't come immediately after Thursday/Friday, but going into the summer, Labour are going to be battling over leadership. There's no question about it. Whether Starmer goes early or goes later, the summer is going to be dominated by stories of Labour leadership crisis.
Robert Hayward, so good to have you on, Conservative peer and pollster. Thank you very much indeed. This is Talk Breakfast. Is Starmer fueling anti-Semitism?
I don't think he's doing anything to deal with anti-Semitism. The attempt to gaslight the British people and the Jewish community is appalling.
This has to stop. It's almost being normalised, and it's terrifying, and we're sick of it. Enough's enough.
Don't be shocked, and don't you bloody dare claim to be shocked or upset or care about Jewish people being stabbed on the streets of our capital city in broad daylight. This is on you.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. 12. No, it's not 12 minutes to 10. I can't tell. It's a couple of minutes to 10. Good morning, Julia.
Very, very good morning to you. Happy post-bank holiday for those of us who actually had the bank holiday.
Did you have a nice time?
I did. It was my birthday.
When?
It's my birthday on Saturday.
Happy birthday.
Saturday, yeah, you know.
Never ask a woman her age.
But no.
Did you have a nice time?
I had a very, very nice time.
Did you?
You
needed bank holiday to recover.
Up for the show.
Interesting today. All over the front of the Sun and everything, all about 200,000. Bigger than the town of York.
Yep.
And the one-for-one's a lie because it was only 7,612 back illegal.
Yeah, exactly. Well, no, that's a different policy, that one. But no, 200,000 people arriving, mostly men.